Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Seattle Police Department still has no suspects in custody. Is the event with Hasan Piker at UW in jeopardy? And attorney generals planned on suing President Trump before he was even elected to office. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
The amount of times people post a picture of this on my social media feeds whenever I post a story about businesses leaving Seattle is insane. What's the picture? The old 1970s billboard, which says, "Last one leaving Seattle, please turn off the lights." Well, this week, there's been so much other news with climate change being an arsonist and all the other with the shooting at Bida, Seattle. People haven't really been paying attention to what's been going on with the business layoffs around here. It started with Zillow. Zillow announced earlier this week that they were going to be laying off 500 workers, with a big chunk of them here in Seattle. Then Google makes a similar announcement that they're going to be laying off workers in Seattle. Then a friend of the show calls me, or messages me, and says, "Hey, Ari, they're laying off people at Salesforce. A lot of people at Salesforce." And this is a person who works at Salesforce. And then news comes out that, yes, Salesforce, which is a division of Microsoft, which has a whole bunch of subsidiaries, is also laying people off. Now, combined, you're only looking at a few hundred people. Only. I say that's the people who just lost their jobs. Only a few hundred people. But this is adding to the, by my count, over 30,000 people in the tech sector that have been laid off since just January. 30,000 people. On Thursday, the Washington State Employment Security Department received a work adjustment and retraining notification. That's when you're laying people off. You have to tell Washington State. Salesforce Inc. showed the company will be permanently laying off 59 workers in Seattle and Bellevue beginning October 5th. The reductions are reportedly hitting employees across Tableau, Trailhead, community engagement, events, and other divisions, and mark Salesforce's third round of layoffs in 2026. Google's going to be laying off 52 Washington employees, including workers based in Seattle, Kirkland, and Redmond, and remote positions across the state. The affected positions include software engineers, engineering managers, product managers, recruiters, designers, and other technical employees. Zillow is laying off 91 of those 500 people. 91 of them are here in Washington as part of a quote-unquote restructuring effort. More than 500 workers worldwide. Many of the Washington cuts will involve senior and highly compensated positions, including directors, principal engineers, senior software engineers, senior product managers, and research employees. Zillow has characterized the reductions as an effort to make the company more efficient and place the right people in the right roles. The company has denied that it's because of AI, despite people claiming that. Now, that's the way the left is trying to spin all this. It's AI, it's AI, it's AI, it's AI. Really? Because there's something interesting. Anytime I get one of these notices, and now I'm on their subscription list, so now I get the notices, so I know when they're laying people off at these companies, or at least when they tell the state they're laying people off, is that when you have all these people getting laid off and you have this massive, massive pattern we are now seeing, it's not AI. I always check when I get these notices if the company is hiring elsewhere. And so far, every company is hiring elsewhere. So what's happening? We've been discussing this for a long time. If it costs you more to have employees in Seattle, in King County, in Washington, because of these massive taxes, like, for example, the Amazon tax, the Jumpstart tax, as Seattle called it, Amazon told Seattle, if you do this, we are out of here, we are leaving. And they left and they went to Bellevue. Now they might be working on leaving the state. Meta rolled back their presence out in Bellevue because they have high-paying earners, and Washington State wants to now follow Seattle's stupid idea and tax the high-paying earners. So if it's more expensive for you to have employees here, are you going to have the employees here or are you going to have them somewhere else? T-Mobile has 3 other campuses, and they have laid off hundreds of workers, but they're hiring at those other campuses. It is more expensive to do business here. Of course, the one we all know is Starbucks. Starbucks gets a new headquarters out in Nashville. They claim, oh, no, Seattle's remaining our headquarters. Nobody works there anymore. More and more people don't work there. They're laying people off here. And guess what? They're hiring them in Nashville. They're building a headquarters which holds 2,000 people. Hey, you know how many people the headquarters here holds? 2,000 people. And now they're all leaving. Now, I saw this article, and this may seem like a nothing burger to a lot of people. It's from the Puget Sound Business Journal. It says, Starbucks closes store in downtown Seattle office tower. Kevin, for all we know, that's the closest one to our neck of the woods because there's just none around here anymore. There just aren't. At what point do you say there's less people in downtown Seattle? So that's why they're closing the stores in downtown Seattle. Was there a union strike? Or do you think it's maybe that the building they're in, the tenant is now moving out? The tenant that occupied a huge amount of space in that office building is moving out. If there's no tenant, there's nobody who's going to be buying your coffee. Why have the store there anymore? They're moving out. Why deal with all the stuff you have to deal with in downtown Seattle? With the drug addicts and the crime and the shattered windows from the protesters and everything else. Just get out of there. Soon, you may have a Seattle which doesn't just not have the corporate headquarters. What if there's actually no Starbucks franchises here? They're opening them elsewhere in the country, but they're closing them here. This is actually the one at 999 3rd Avenue. Oh, yeah. You got big tenants moving out of that. We have a 37% office vacancy rate, the highest in the U.S. in downtown Seattle. At what point do you realize it's the bad policies driving them out of here? Let's take Starbucks for a minute. If you have Starbucks, which actually gets incentivized to have the jobs out in Nashville, why would they want to have the jobs here in Seattle when they get taxed more? Nashville offers them money to move the jobs there. Tennessee offers them the jobs to move there. You know, we did that radio gig a couple months ago where we drove down to Starbucks with a U-Haul truck to help them move, and we broadcast the show from out there. I think I should go to Nashville. I think I should interview some people from Starbucks. I think I should interview the mayor of Nashville. I think I should interview the governor of Nashville and say, what are you doing different? And how many businesses do you see coming here from Seattle, from King County, from Washington? And what are they telling you when they get here? And then we might want to find some of the people who actually left. We might want to see and talk to these people, and they'll tell us clear as day why they left. It's no surprise why. Is there anybody in my audience, anybody, who has not had the discussion about leaving? I know that anytime I put this out there, the phone lines blow up, the texts blow up, with people go, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. And I actually think that a lot of what we saw in the primary is not just the GOP in a lot of places like King County not showing up to actually do the fight, but I think a lot of it is how many people have left. I mean, 2/3 of my synagogue have left since COVID. That's the entire Orthodox Jewish community because a lot of them were here for tech. And if you could get paid those Seattle wages and work remotely, why would you stay here where it's so expensive? So a lot of people left. A lot of people went to other places with more kosher restaurants and actual kosher delis, which we don't have around here, unfortunately. So more and more people are leaving. Howard Schultz did not become a billionaire by being stupid. Jeff Bezos did not become a billionaire by being stupid. They did so by being successful. And when the government says we want to take a whole bunch of your money, why would you stay here? Howard Schultz announcing the day the Democrats were applauding in the legislature of passing the millionaire tax, which we all know is really an income tax. He announces he's leaving to Miami. Oh, gee, what a coinky-dink. What coincidental timing. Didn't see that one coming along. Tens of thousands of people have been laid off in recent years in the Seattle job market. Starbucks moved out. Oh, but they're not really moving out, right? So now you've got all these companies moving out, and you look around a little bit more, and you've got more people saying they're considering leaving. You've got 44% of employers considering moving their personal residences out of Washington, with 64% citing taxes as their primary concern. This is so bad. You remember that John Schneider, the Seahawks general manager, actually went on the sports station in town and was discussing with them that he's getting calls from agents saying, well, you don't get to recruit using that no income tax anymore. But Jay Inslee, who wanted this for so long, Bob Ferguson, who's the one who actually pushed it through, Jamie Peterson, who's the one who pushed it through, all the Democrats, there's no exodus going on. There's no corporate exodus going on. You know, San Francisco was a lot smarter than us. Took them a while, too. But San Francisco became such a national joke. When Ron DeSantis holds up a poop map during a national debate, a map of where all the human feces is on your sidewalks, you're a national disgrace. What is it going to take for Seattle to hit rock bottom? I was actually talking with some friends of mine on the way to synagogue last weekend. So I'm walking to synagogue, and there's two synagogues across the street from each other. And usually you run into people from the other synagogue who you haven't seen all week. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? And I get to talking with them. And they're talking about this one group is already standing there talking, and they go, perfect person is here. Here's Ari. And they say, Ari, what happens when you talk to people and you tell them that you live in Seattle? I go, what used to happen or what happens now? And they said, what happens now? And I said, okay, well, what used to happen is, oh, you're from Seattle. Oh, I went on the most beautiful cruise out of Seattle. Oh, I went hiking in Seattle. Oh, it's so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now, I'd say for the last 4 or 5 years, when I say I'm from Seattle, oh, really? Oh, what are you still doing there? You know, I get this all the time. So let me give you a little behind the curtain on how the TV interviews work. So I get asked on Fox, and I get asked on Newsmax, and I get asked on. I'm friends now with the people who do the tech side of things, right? Every now and again, when we have a longer amount of time to kill, like let's say the interview got preempted for Trump or something, and like, hey, Ari, you mind sticking around a little bit? And yeah, sure, no problem. Hey, Ari, just wanted to, say we really appreciate you being here. Yeah, no problem. You still live out in Seattle? Yep. Why? Why don't you come join us in Florida? And my answer is always the same. If I moved to Florida, you wouldn't have me on the show anymore, right? Because what's to report about in Florida? Oh, things are wonderful today, and they're going to be wonderful tomorrow. Oh, there's a hurricane coming. Aside from that, what else are you going to report in Florida? Well, it's like America over here. Unfortunately, we are where all the news is because the news is so bad. At what point do they wake up? In San Francisco, once that poop map went up, during that Ron DeSantis debate with Gavin Newsom, once people are talking about the poop map, you know what happened? San Francisco actually elected a more moderate mayor. A more moderate mayor who's actually cleaning up the city. Piece by piece, step by step. It's still pretty awful. But they're actually making the right moves in the right direction. Here, Seattle just doubled down on dumb regarding the city council, regarding more taxes. You know Savannah Hernandez? Savannah Hernandez works for Turning Point USA. She's one of the people who goes out and covers the Antifa riots and such. She was in Seattle last weekend. She's in Seattle, and she was covering the Seattle Public Library. We played that clip of her the other day where she was in the Seattle Public Library, and it's absolutely disgusting in there. I wish this clip had come out a couple days before the tax. Maybe some people would have woken up. Maybe, and seen what's going on. The homeless are all over the Seattle Public Library. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on that branch in downtown Seattle, the goofy-looking building with all the glass. And it's infested with homeless. Do you know what is inside that building? The Department of Emergency Services, of Downtown Emergency Services. Those guys are there offering services to the homeless, so they hang out there all day. There's people doing the Fetty Fold on the children's level of the Seattle Public Library. It's in the video. And Seattle voters just decided to give them more money, not for libraries. Read the library levy. The library levy language says where the money's going. and it's going to homeless services. What do you need that for in the library? You want to have a vote on that, put in something else. It's going to DEI nonsense. That's what's actually in the library levy, and people are doubling down on it. Picking the more lefty options for the Seattle City Council, picking the more lefty options for the legislature, picking the more lefty options for Supreme Court justice. Are they going to look around and go, where'd everybody go? You look at the recent studies from the Washington Policy Center. The wealth is moving out, and the people like Katie Wilson are moving in. Katie Wilson, who moved here without a job, whose husband refused to get off his lazy butt and actually work and refused to take care of their kid. I don't fault stay-at-home dads. That's fine. That's a choice. This guy was paying for daycare while refusing to work. And then Katie Wilson said, you should be able to busk in the subway or at the bus stop or whatever and still be able to afford to live in Seattle. Guess what? I would love to live on Mercer Island. Don't have to deal with city problems. Don't have to deal with Seattle problems. I would love to live in Bellevue. Don't have to deal with Seattle problems. Unfortunately, too expensive for me. So I live in South Seattle, and that's getting to be too expensive for me, along with a lot of other people, because of these policies. So what's happening is these people show up here, these deadbeats show up here, pay for my life, pay for my existence. And then Seattle elected officials, King County elected officials, Washington elected officials are saying, sure, we're going to tax these rich people and use it to pay for your life. So are you surprised that the rich people are leaving? We did everything right. We followed all the rules. And you're using all our money on drug addicts. And you're using all our money on criminals. And you're using all our money on slackers who refuse to get jobs. So people are leaving. And businesses are leaving. Because they can't make a go of it here. Because they are being punished for being successful. You think people want to live in Idaho that badly? You think Idaho's that nice? It's not as pretty as Seattle. I've been there. I can tell you that. It's not. Sorry, everybody who lives in Idaho. It's not as pretty. It's not. But you know what? You want to get out of here? You want to save some money? You don't want to have your gun rights taken away? You don't want to have drug addicts all over the place? You don't want to be randomly assaulted walking down the street? You don't want to have a random protest start blocking the streets? Okay. Then people will live in Idaho. I understand it. I really, truly do. And you still get the moderate weather that you have over in this part. People have had enough and they have reached the breaking point. And I'm concerned about how many have left. That's actually seeing a lot more in these election results. It's not just that we have the GOP local parties who aren't doing their job. We have some that are doing their job. I want to be careful about that. There are some that are doing their job and doing a great job. But we have a lot of people who are just saying, oh, I'm not voting anymore. But we have a lot of people who left and aren't here to vote anymore. And that's one of our biggest problems right now, which means you need every single vote of who's there. And you need to get out all the disaffected voters. And you need to get out the people who don't vote. 1 million Christians didn't vote in the last election. 1 million Christians didn't vote in the last election. I come back to the story all the time because it drives me bonkers. A guy at my synagogue who I would talk to every week about politics, every single week. A couple weeks after one of the elections, he goes, okay, so I got my ballot. What do I do with it? I'm like, dude, you missed the election. You missed the election, and we talk about this every single week. You missed the election. Is anybody in the GOP doing ballot harvesting? Is anybody on our side doing ballot harvesting? Because the other side certainly is. The other side most definitely is. If we don't, we lose. If more people leave, we lose. And then the question is, how much longer can this continue? Because if the Democrats get a supermajority in the Washington State legislature, the craziness that we have seen so far is just going to be the warm-up act for what comes next. I'm a little bit afraid of what comes next. Well, I'll tell you what comes next on our show, because you don't have to be afraid of that. There's actually some good news out of the University of Washington. Got some breaking news coming across about how UW finally made the right decision on something. I'll tell you what it was when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Friday's not usually the day for breaking news around here, but we got some for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
Just before we went on air today, we found out big news about something happening locally. So just a few days ago, we found out that Hasan Piker, the far-left, anti-American, anti-Semitic, dog-torturing streamer, was booked to come speak at the University of Washington. Now, there are a few things that are odd about this. Number one, University of Washington may book their guests months in advance. They don't usually advertise it this far in advance. The gig was supposed to be in January. Number two, you have a big, beautiful campus of University of Washington. Lots of lecture halls, lots of big rooms for big names. Why is this thing being held in a rented venue in downtown Seattle, which is smaller than a lot of the places at University of Washington? Also, why did the university itself, the administration, seem so shocked and unaware that this was even happening when everybody reached out to them for comment? So what's been happening over the last few days is University of Washington has been like, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. We have this lunatic who said America deserved 9/11. We have this lunatic who's calling for people to murder capitalists and landlords in the streets. Also, they're getting it from the animal rights people because the dude's constantly shocking his dog on his live stream. He's torturing his dog on the live stream. So they're getting it from everybody. Never mind the anti-Semitic craziness about this guy who dresses as Mao, talks about how great Marxism is. That guy. The guy who, well, basically talks about how his favorite flag is the Hamas flag or the Hezbollah flag while sitting at a table which is covered in the LGBTQIA flag, which they would happily throw those people off a roof. So you're wondering, this guy's managed to piss off basically everybody except the extreme far left. Well, now, according to intrepid reporter Jessica Russek-Hoffman over at the Jewish News Syndicate, the University of Washington canceled an event with anti-Semitic streamer Hasan Piker, which was scheduled for January. JNS reported that not only did the university plan to host the hateful commentator, upon whom it heaped praise in the description of the event, which two of the university schools plan to co-host, but the public school had also suggested that attendees pay $10 each for tickets. So, our friend, Representative Travis Couture, told the outlet, "I'm happy that the University of Washington, for literally the first time ever, has made the correct decision to not have an American-hating communist spread his hatred and terrible ideology to young people at our taxpayer-funded universities. Obviously, universities are a place for First Amendment free speech, but someone who said America deserves 9/11 and that capitalist blood should spill in the street should not be someone we are promoting with our tax dollars. Every elected official and taxpayer-funded organization should be asked to condemn socialism, communism, and the Democratic Socialists of America people like Hasan Piker. If they will not condemn those people, actions, and extreme ideology, then they should be disqualified from serving the people of Washington State." Now, the university actually put out a statement on this when they announced he wasn't coming. And what's funny was, I got this statement. I asked them for a statement a few days ago. Right, Kevin? You remember this whole thing? I reached out to them. I said, can I have a statement? And they sent me a statement with, like, we respect free speech, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you guys know you're going to get kicked in the teeth for this, right? I mean, it's going to be bad. I mean, politically, of course, and donor-wise. I don't mean physically. But this is going to be super, super bad. Today, unsolicited, UW sends me this statement. Just came right out of it. The University of Washington is dedicated to the free exchange of ideas, including on controversial topics and involving provocative speakers. After Hasan Piker was announced as a speaker for the 2026-2027 Speaker Series, there was a review of the process by which the event was planned. It was determined that the process for organizing this event did not meet the necessary level of rigor for university-hosted events in the Speaker Series. As a result, this event will not be held. Time out. Okay, let's do the Zach Morris style, like Saved by the Bell. Can you explain to me which part wasn't to the university standards? Which part didn't follow the process and the procedure? You want to know what I think? I think that their social justice school or political school, whatever it is, whoever was, the Henry Jackson nonsense school, I don't even know what they're teaching over there, that school and the graduate school said to themselves, let's have Hasan Piker out here. Let's try to brainwash these kids a little bit more. And you know what? We'll use the university funds because we have this big endowment fund we can use for speakers all the time. So we'll just slide it on in there and nobody's ever going to know. And then what? Are they going to cancel it? They're University of Washington. They allowed a Gaza encampment on the grounds for 2 months. They're not going to do anything about it. Then they get the emails. You know how many non-Jewish friends of mine reached out to me and said, Ari, I went to UW. I emailed UW and I told them I'm pulling my donations. I told UW I'm yanking them out of my will. I told UW, how dare they do this? How can they do this? So what do you want to bet the university, which is currently under investigation in 3 different ways by the Trump administration for anti-Semitism, probably said, is the juice worth the squeeze here? You know what I actually think happened? I'm going to give a little kudos to UW here. I really, really am. UW's administration has really been trying to clean things up with the new president. They really have. I mean, look, it's still University of Washington. I shouldn't give them too much credit, but they're really trying. They're really, really trying. And I think what happened is these 2 schools went rogue. And I think the administration had no idea until they started getting requests for comment, until the story started going viral on social media. I cannot believe how many hits that thing got, because when did they post this? These 2 schools, these 2 subsidiary schools of University of Washington posted it when everybody's talking about the Abdul al-Sayed election in Michigan, who Hasan Piker is campaigning with. Now, the people organizing this event goes, what a great time. Let's get it out there. Let's launch it right now while his name is out there and people will notice. Well, people noticed, all right. People noticed, and they weren't happy that you're bringing on an anti-American, pro-terror, anti-Semitic, dog-torturing lunatic. So they said, yeah, we're pulling our donation. We don't want this anymore, and we definitely don't want this funded with taxpayer dollars. And University of Washington administration goes, we don't want to lose our taxpayer funding. The Trump administration is after us already. Get rid of this guy. But also, they're trying to do the right thing more and more these days. Look, the University of Washington president came to my synagogue to do a town hall with me, and that was their idea, by the way. That was kudos to them. Most people don't sign up to step in the lion's den with me. That was their idea to do that. So if that's their idea to do something like that, they're trying to make things better. And my guess is these schools went rogue. My guess is that University of Washington was completely blindsided by this and said, what mess have you gotten us into? And I have another theory, too. I have another theory that the activist teachers at UW are really not happy with the new direction of the school. Back towards normal, back towards learning, back towards teaching. And they're trying to do their activist nonsense. So they probably figured this was a big screw you to the administration. What are you going to do? Now, does anybody have an egg timer? A kitchen egg timer? Anything? One of those sand timers, maybe from one of those board games? One of those? How quickly do you think a protest is going to be organized in Red Square to bring back the communist, pro-terror, anti-American, pro-9/11 dog torturer? How long until there is a protest in Red Square or at the UW president's house or wherever else it is, demanding they bring back Hasan Piker? I think it's going to be 30 seconds. Under over bet? Are we going to see the Flyers tonight? Are we going to see the Flyers tomorrow? Is there going to be a protest on Sunday or Monday or tomorrow? Who knows? These activists don't have jobs. There's no more Starbucks around here. They can't find anywhere to be baristas anymore. I think it's just a matter of minutes. Somebody check Instagram. They always post their crazy over on Instagram. Speaking of crazy, by the way, a whole bunch of attorneys general decided they were going to sue President Trump, except he wasn't the president yet. He wasn't elected yet, and he wouldn't be for a few more months. We'll tell you how Nick Brown is involved in this whole mess when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Do you remember the night of the 2024 election, how we had that big election night party out in Bellevue? KVI was hosting the thing with the GOP. It was great. We were having a great time. What was it? Over 1,000 people were there. I mean, we had people spilling out into the hallway. It was nuts. And everybody's all excited about President Trump getting reelected to office. And everybody's going nuts. And then the local returns are coming in. And I think a lot of people were so euphoric about President Trump getting elected and Congress and the Senate that they didn't look at the local results, which were terrible. Now, 49 other states in the U.S. went more to the right or went more red. Only one state went more to the left, and that was Washington. That was Washington State. Why do I bring all this up? Do you remember the next day? The next day, Turd Ferguson and Nick Brown, neither of them were elected to their new positions yet. Turd Ferguson was still Attorney General. Nick Brown was about to become Attorney General, but Jay Inslee was still governor. And Turd Ferguson and Nick Brown call a press conference to say, and Turd Ferguson literally said this, that they'd been working for months on preparing for Donald Trump to win the election, and they were prepared to fight him. Okay. First of all, not a lot of confidence in Joe Biden there. And not a lot of confidence in Kamala Harris either. So you kind of knew the guy was going to win, so let's do that. But you've been spending time preparing to sue him. You don't even know what he's going to do. And yet you're preparing to sue him? Well, now this new article by our friend T.J. Martinell, who does outstanding work for the Center Square, says nearly 24 state attorneys general banded together as early as April 2024 to plot litigation against President Donald Trump long before he was reelected, according to a confidential document obtained by the Center Square. The document was signed approximately 3 months before President Joe Biden exited from the race and Vice President Kamala Harris became the Democratic nominee for president. Okay, let's stop right there. So that means people in the Democrat Party knew Joe Biden wasn't up to it and knew he was going to get creamed by Trump. Let's just put that in a little box and put that on the side for a minute here. The ones who are saying, oh, he's so sharp. Behind closed doors, he's so sharp. Do you remember Bob Ferguson playing chess with Joe Biden? Do you remember that picture where it looked like an AI hologram Joe Biden playing chess against Bob Ferguson? You're like, is he dead already? Is it the ghost of Joe Biden? Who did the lighting in that room? Also, excuse me. Sorry, smoke again. Also, does anybody believe for a second, for one teeny, tiny little second, that Joe Biden has the mental capability to play chess? Anybody? Does anybody believe that at all? No, of course not. So what happens? The document signed was nearly 7 months before Trump was reelected by 2.3 million more votes than Harris, almost 9 months before he was inaugurated. State attorneys general have sued the Trump administration nearly 100 times since January of 2025. The coordinated effort appears to have a nickname, the Project for Federal Accountability. Former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff, who was a Republican when he was in office and now often votes with Democrats, said he believes the timing was unusual. He described signing similar documents during his tenure from 2001 through 2013, but not for any hypothetical lawsuits planned so far in advance of government action. He said that's not normal at all. It's a big selling point now. I get lots of emails from people running for attorney general, lots of texts and emails saying we've got to stop President Trump or we've got to work together as state attorneys general. That's why you need to give me money and vice versa. It goes both ways. I don't think that's the best use of an attorney general's time. Not all of the lawsuits have been joined by each attorney general, and some offices take the lead on different cases. At last count, California Attorney General Rob Bonta had participated in 82 lawsuits. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser had joined at least 75. Washington State Attorney General Brown has joined 70. Oh, you got to up your game there, Nick. Not quite coming in at the numbers of Bonta. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays has joined 46. At a news conference on Tuesday, Bonta stated the lawsuits are apolitical. Oh, are they? Are they? He announced the lawsuits have cost California taxpayers $19 million, and he will continue to file them as needed. He says if Trump doesn't want to get sued, all he has to do is follow the law. I don't think our cases are likely to be dismissed. Trump shows no sign of slowing down, so we will continue to sue him. Do you know how many of these cases they've lost and burned the taxpayer money on? Oh, yeah, they've had a few wins here and there, and some pretty big ones. But the majority of them, they are losing. So far, 11 cases have closed in favor of a plaintiff, 4 cases dismissed in favor of federal government, according to Just Security, a nonpartisan digital law and policy journal at New York University. The document, titled Privileged and Confidential, Common Interest Agreement, also incorporated plans to withhold some information from the public surrounding the lawsuits, indicating the parties, quote, wish to pursue their common interest concerning federal accountability issues and litigation, addressing such issues while avoiding any waiver of the confidentiality of those privileged materials. At least 22 Democratic attorneys general appear to have signed the common interest agreement. 0 Republican attorneys general appear to have signed it. 3 Democratic attorneys general in Oregon, Virginia, and Wisconsin have declined to say whether they signed the agreement. The Virginia attorney generals flipped from red to blue in January of 2026. 1 year earlier, Pennsylvania went in the opposite direction. Voters elected a Republican to succeed a Democrat in January 2025. Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday did not respond to questions when asked about this. When attorneys general have sued prior administrations, it was typically after the administration took action, not before. So for those of you who are thinking to yourselves right now that, well, you know, Republicans would sue the Biden administration all the time. Yeah, but it was always in response to something. It wasn't done beforehand. For example, Sherliff pointed to a 2012 lawsuit challenging the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, after its passage in March 2010. He was one of 22 Republican attorney generals who signed on to the case, which ended with a partial victory and a partial defeat before the U.S. Supreme Court. We all remember that one. 7 attorneys general signed the Common Interest Agreement on April 28, 2024, with District of Columbia Attorney General Brian Schwab's signature appearing first. California's signature was left undated, and 13 other attorneys general joined in May or June of 2024. Hawaii Attorney General Ann E. Lopez was the last known signatory on November 12, 2024, 7 days after Trump won a second term. The majority of attorneys general who signed the agreement have declined to comment or answer questions. Some have downplayed the timing. Subverting democracy much? Undermining an election, perhaps? Yeah, this sounds like a threat to democracy, doesn't it? Former Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson, who is now the governor, announced 1 day after the election that his office had already been preparing potential litigation against Trump for months. Quote, "We knew from our extensive experience during his first term that we'd need to be prepared from day one if he was elected. My team has gone line by line through Project 2025 and has been tracking remarks by Trump on the campaign trail. Aren't you guys supposed to be fighting for the citizens of Washington? Are you supposed to be protecting the citizens of Washington? I guess you guys were too busy trying to figure out how to circumvent the Constitution and give us an income tax instead. Right? That's what you were doing? A concern I have is that Trump, I believe, and his administration may well be better prepared on their end. They've been working on this for months. Talk about Trump derangement syndrome. Now, this is really, really bad. And it's amazing to me that the Center Square got this document and our friend TJ Martinell exposed this. Where's CNN? Where's MSNBC? Where's Fox News? Where's any of these guys? TJ Martinell from the Center Square revealed this conspiracy against the president before he was even elected. This is a little crazy. This goes to a whole new level of TDS, with Bob Ferguson being one of the ones who's leading it. Is anybody surprised at all? Of course not. Something I am surprised by, an NBA star is now saying he is eligible to join the WNBA. Yes, my friends, we knew it was only a matter of time, and we'll tell you who's stepping up to protect women's sports when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Ever since the WNBA became national news, we've been talking about the fact that as soon as one of the NBA stars steps up and says that they're declaring themselves eligible for the WNBA and actually drafts, maybe this whole men and women's sports thing will be over. Maybe. Well, earlier today, sorry, it's too ridiculous. It's too ridiculous. Kevin, you're shaking your head. Did you see this? You cut the audio. You saw it. Okay. Former NBA draft, first-round pick, third overall in 2011, Enes Kanter Freeman, who has been an opponent of LeBron James, the Communist Chinese Party, Nike, along with more political activism on our side of the aisle, which he believes blackballed him from the NBA, declared himself a prospect for the 2027 WNBA draft. Give a listen.
After careful consideration and reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. My team and I have carefully examined the WNBA's eligibility criteria and governing framework surrounding self-identification and inclusion. Based on the current guidelines, I can and am officially declaring my eligibility for the upcoming WNBA draft in May 2027. I am definitely not here to mock, make fun of, or disrespect any community or personal choices. I am simply asking that the current rules be applied equally to everyone. The rules that represent the very values many WNBA players and coaches have publicly advocated for. My team and I are prepared to ensure these guidelines are applied equally, consistently, and without exception. And I look forward to the WNBA honoring its stated principles. See you at training camp.
Sorry, that's too good. It's too good. Your move, WNBA. You guys said protect trans rights. Well, he's declaring himself eligible there. I mean, this could not be better. The only way this could be better if it was LeBron. You know, it'd be funny if Jordan and all those guys from the Bulls or any of those guys come out and do it. You remember what happened when Michael Jordan was asked? Michael Jordan was asked just a few years ago, hey, Michael, who do you think would win? You and the Bulls or LeBron and the Lakers? And Michael Jordan had the best answer ever. He says, oh, me and the boys, but just by a few points. And they go, really? And he goes, well, yeah, most of us are pushing 60 by now, right? Just like the biggest own ever, right? So take Enes Kanter Freeman, right? Now, he hasn't been playing for a while, and put him up against Caitlin Clark. What do you think is going to happen with that giant of a man head-to-head with her? It's not fair, of course, right? We know this. We know what's going to happen. Now, if they reject him, the WNBA is hypocrites because they're all saying, no, trans rights matter. The only way that could have been better is if he said he identified as trans. If he identified as a woman, standing there the way he is, that would have been the only way this gets any better. Megan Rapinoe. Man, I didn't know she was still a thing. Apparently, she's got her own podcast these days. And she is very opposed to Sophie Cunningham's and all the girls of the world protecting women's sports. Wait, I thought that was your whole shtick. Didn't you lose to a bunch of middle school boys when you guys played them? Yeah, pretty sure that happened. You guys, yeah, kneeling for the flag and all that. Here's what she had to say on the controversy.
In an interview with ESPN, Cunningham emphasized how she wanted to protect, quote unquote, young girls in the locker room. After the article was published, Cunningham defended her comments and was recently photographed with Riley Gaines at an Indiana Fever game. I don't know Sophie, so I can only project what I see about her beliefs based on her actions. And seeing a picture of her with Riley Gaines after the game told me everything I need to know about what's happening. Riley Gaines has made it her life's mission to exclude trans people from public life. She's directly tied to the Heritage Foundation, the authors of Project 2025 and now 2026, who have now published a report that suggests that they want to repeal Title IX.
Stop. Okay, stop. Enough of this nonsense. Riley Gaines lost races in women's swimming because of dudes. Because of dudes in the sport. Second of all, does Sophie Cunningham know who she is? Who knows? I take pictures of people all the time. I have no idea who's standing next to me in half of them, right? Take a picture with somebody who's at a game, say hi. Take a picture with a fan, say hi. But assuming she did know who she is, so you're mad about somebody defending women's sports, and you're the one who said, we need to be paid our fair share. We don't get paid enough. We need to be paid our fair share. Oh, spare me. You're all a bunch of hypocrites. You're all a bunch of hypocrites. J.D. Vance was asked about this in an interview the other day about Sophie Cunningham and everybody standing up for women's sports and the people in the WNBA refusing to do so. Give a listen.
I just think, look, sometimes when you're courageous in this country, some of the worst people in the world try to attack you. What I would tell Sophie and anybody else is keep speaking your mind. You actually are inspiring a dozen people for every person that criticizes you. And we cannot take our country back. We cannot save the United States of America unless you have people of courage who are speaking their mind. The thing about courage, Laura, is it's contagious. When you see one person, even if they have the mob come after them, one person speak their mind in a courageous and honest way, it inspires a lot of people to do the same. So I would tell Sophie, keep going.
Yeah, I think you inspired Enes Kanter Freeman. It's too good. It's too good. We go to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's going on?
No, a couple things. I'm going to ask you a question about Tallarico here in a minute.
Well, hang on a second. Ron, you got a minute, so make it quick. What's your most important thing?
Most important thing is, a lot of people keep calling our country is a constitutional republic. We got to quit calling it what the Democrats want to keep calling it. We are not a democracy. Tallarico situation. Just wanted to ask you a question. Why is James Tallarico headlining a pride event with an 11-year-old child called Queen Kiki? Just because parents are mentally ill and allow this to happen.
Well, here's a better question. Ron, I got my fights here. We could talk about James Tallarico, but we got our fights we got to deal with here right now. I'm not so concerned about James Tallarico right now. I think that's Texas's problem, and hopefully Texas is going to take care of their own problem. We got a whole lot more to discuss, including your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves. Our homeless problem is apparently worse than anywhere else in the U.S. And Mike Johnson was here in Washington. Is Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez in trouble? We'll tell you all about it. But first, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right, my friends. Today, we are giving away your chance to go to Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon. So, all you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you for your chance to win. And you are running out of chances to win, my friends, because next week is our last week of this contest. So make sure you are listening at all times we give away the keyword for your chance to win. Today's keyword is elk. As in, when you're in Yellowstone, you might see an elk. Text the word elk, E-L-K. to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win. Do not text your name. Do not text your phone number. Do not text your address. Do not say, hey, Ari, are you looking forward to having a scotch after you're done with work today? Absolutely, I am. But do not text that in. Text the word elk, E-L-K, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And don't forget, next week is your last chance to win. So, switching gears over to what's going on here in Washington State. Attorney General Nick Brown coming off the revelation that him and Turd Ferguson were working before President Trump was even in office. In fact, before Nick Brown was in office to sue the Trump administration. Says Washington and a multi-state coalition have won their case challenging the Department of Housing and Urban Development's illegal attempt to cap funding for permanent housing projects that help families facing housing insecurity or experiencing homelessness. If the coalition had not successfully challenged HUD's policy, nearly 3,000 Washingtonians would have lost their homes. Stop, pause, stop, pause. That is not what this is. Number one, you won at a low court, and this is going all the way to the top, and you're probably going to lose. But number two, what this is HUD said, we're not funding failed models anymore. We're not throwing good money after bad. Show us you can be successful. Now, I love when they say, 3,000 Washingtonians would have lost their homes. Do you know what they're talking about here? They're talking about the drug addicts who are destroying housing that we have paid for with our tax money in downtown Seattle, King County, and elsewhere. The ones who have a tent, which they sell drugs out of, and have an RV, which is a chop shop, and they still live on our housing. The ones who, when you walk in there, they are massive drug dens. And what the Department of Housing and Urban Development is doing, and we spoke to Secretary Turner about this. We had him on the show. What they are saying is, you are failing. You are failing, as they say, bigly. And if you're failing bigly, we need to do something to address that. So, now that HUD is actually asking for some accountability, you have Nick Brown and these other attorneys general from other states saying, we don't want accountability. We don't want. You know how easy this is to fix? You don't have to sue. All you have to do is say, yeah, we're going to offer treatment to the drug addicts. And we're going to offer services to the mentally ill. And we're going to enforce the law. Attorneys general, instead, give us the money for the free housing. We want the free housing. No. Enforce the law. Do your jobs. And I love Nick Brown's statement on this. The lawlessness happening in our federal agencies has real consequences for people who are struggling to get by. With the lawlessness? You literally allow lawlessness at the downtown emergency services building. How many of these homeless facilities, which are really taxpayer-funded drug encampments, how many of these facilities are the number one 911 calls in their neighborhood? Oh, all of them. Every single one of them. You want to talk about lawlessness? That's what it is. What are they really mad about? Let's keep reading in the statement. For more than 2 decades, HUD has embraced a commitment to permanent housing programs and the housing first model. Stop. So if they've embraced it for 2 decades, how come things aren't better? How come things aren't better? It's been almost 20 years since King County. said, we're going to end homelessness in 10 years. 10 years, we're going to end homelessness. You know how many homeless people were in King County when they first announced this program? 2,000. You know how many there are now? Over 16,000, and we know that's an undercount. So you have failed. You have failed bigly. You have failed horribly. Absolutely failed. And you want the money for more of this insanity? Have you people lost your minds? Look, odds are he's going to lose this as it keeps going up the ladder. For now, he gets a short-term victory. I notice he's not talking about a bunch of the cases he lost this week. You know how bad things are? You know the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program? Well, our friend Andrea Suarez and Eric Zimmerman, who's Public Safety Policy Director at the Washington Policy Center, made a video earlier this week exposing some parts of LEAD. Give a listen.
In 2011, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, known as the LEAD program, came to be. This was an alternative to incarceration for low-level crimes like possession of narcotics or prostitution. We are now number 1 in the state for homelessness growth, number 4 in overdose deaths, number 1 in hospital response for overdoses, and we're number 1 in retail theft. The LEAD program simply does not work. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card. The data is flawed.
My name is Eric Zimmerman, representing the nonpartisan Washington Policy Center. I have more than 2 decades of experience with national poverty programs worldwide.
Early on, I think the researchers were clear that the LEAD study had some basic promise and it was necessary to look into it further. I think that never happened.
And I think over time, we started telling a different story than what the study itself said. While diversion can be an appropriate tool, LEAD is an experimental program that operates beyond what its evidence supports and is now used too often in Seattle. The 58% reduction in recidivism cited in LEAD's own presentations and in your council packet is not factual, and it misunderstands LEAD's small and preliminary study.
This 18-year-old came into the South Precinct. I met with her. She knew who I was. We were going to either go to Valley, Orca, the Kirkland Crisis Center. We had it all figured out. But the officer said, but we've got to do that LEAD protocol thing first. The LEAD intake came in and said, what's your name? What's your race? What's your age? Boom, 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 3 questions. Sign here, charges dropped. Right there at midnight. That little girl grabbed her backpack and bolted. She's now back with her boyfriend twice her age, back on Rainier Avenue South in District 2, smoking fentanyl.
I was offered LEAD 5 years ago. I was let go that night, did not show up for the program. Charges were eventually dropped. To be frank, the only way I found success was through being arrested, not because I didn't want to, but because addiction held me back.
Now, let's analyze this for a second. You have this program that has failed for years, and yet they keep funding it. When Bruce Harrell first got elected, he had a chance to prove me wrong. When Bruce Harrell, former mayor of Seattle, first went into office, I said this guy's going to be a failure. He's not going to change the status quo. Nothing's going to change. He originally said he wanted an audit of the LEAD program, and I said, oh, maybe I was wrong. But no, I'm never wrong. So what happened instead? City Council got mad that he even wanted an audit of the program, and no audit ever happened. When you have this program that's just releasing people from prison and releasing people from prison and releasing people from prison with no consequences whatsoever, guess what? You have a lot of criminals on the streets. You have a lot of criminals on the streets. Years ago, I met with Lisa Dugard, who was running LEAD at the time. She wanted to meet with me because people thought I was going to win when I was running for office, and they were worried that I was going to cut their program. So they wanted to convince me how great their program was. I go into their offices, and they tell me a couple of sob stories, and then I say, great, where's your data? Where's your data? Show me. This is lovely. This is wonderful. Show me your data. Where's your data? Where's your data? Okay. Where's your data? We'll get it to you. You ever think I got that data? No, not in a million years. And don't forget, programs like the New York bail reform, where they just let people out of jail without any bail whatsoever, were based on LEAD's failed model. Let's check the numbers and see how successful this has worked out for just turning criminals loose. Washington State has some of the worst homeless numbers in the country. Eric Zimmerman, who is the director of Public Safety Solutions and Policy for the Washington Policy Center, wrote that op-ed in the Seattle Times we quoted a few days ago. Washington experienced a 418% increase in chronic homelessness between 2014 and 2024, the highest increase of any state in the U.S. Only California has more chronically homeless residents overall. According to the analysis, between 2014 and 2024, homelessness grew an average of 43% in these states, compared to just 3% elsewhere. So these are the states participating in the lawsuit that Nick Brown is excited about winning. So all the states that are participating in have some of the worst homelessness in the U.S. The plaintiff states had an average per capita homelessness rate of 82% higher than other states in the U.S. These numbers are so mind-boggling, I asked Eric to come in, and he's going to be joining us at 4:30 today. He pointed to a 2024 survey conducted by the King County Regional Homelessness Authority with University of Washington researchers that found only 4.9% of homeless men cited rent increases as contributing to their homelessness, while 6.5% cited eviction. By comparison, wait a second, hang on a second. So you're saying only 11% said it was a homelessness issue. Wait, that kind of tracks. You remember those lawsuits which Seattle and King County filed against Purdue Pharma and other big drug companies? And inside of them, they said over 80% of people on the streets have an addiction problem. We covered them at the time. And then when you asked Bob Ferguson, or you asked any of the prosecutors, or you asked Al Constantine, hey, you guys filed all these lawsuits that say it's a drug problem. Why are you saying it's a homeless problem? Pay no attention to our own lawsuits. No. Those numbers are inaccurate. They're your lawsuits. You were more than happy to take the settlements from the drug companies because you wanted the money for Washington State, so you use the real numbers when it came to that. But then when it comes to policy, you don't actually use the real numbers. Hey, what happened to all that money anyway? Was it supposed to go to drug treatment? I don't see a lot of drug treatment actually happening around here. What happened to all that money? Did we spend it on trans surgeries or for convicted felons or something like that? What happened to the hundreds of millions of dollars that came from these drug companies? Anybody seen it anywhere? Anybody? Anybody at all? I mean, the numbers do not lie. The numbers are really, really bad. 418% increase in chronic homelessness. You're doing something wrong. You know what that means? Maybe you're incentivizing homelessness with the billions of dollars. Just a thought. Just a thought. And the drug overdose rates are going up. You know, the Center Square has a ticker over in the corner. They put it up weekly about how many people died of drug overdoses that week and what the numbers are ongoing and how bad it's getting. They have the article up. I think it's every Sunday or Monday. That article goes up on the Center Square website. Nobody else is tracking that. Where's CNN with their COVID trackers? Let's put those suckers up. Well, some people are doing some things about accountability. So, you know how we found out that all these housing programs that are really reparations programs, it was just corrupt and people were giving the money to their families? Well, thanks to King County Councilmember Reagan Dunn, there's going to be some safeguards on these programs where you wonder why they weren't in the first place. According to Como News, King County Council members unanimously adopted a sweeping set of ethics reforms Tuesday aimed at preventing county employees from using their positions to benefit relatives or people with whom they had personal relationships. Why weren't these programs created that way in the first place? My son was so crushed. Kevin, when I first got the job 6 years ago, my son would enter the contests because he wanted to win the take the trip or keep the cash. He would text in like every day. And he said, Dad, I texted in today, and I had to break it to him. Relatives of people who work at the station are not. He was so crushed. So crushed. We have those safeguards here. See, my relatives cannot win take the trip or keep the cash. I got to pay for that myself. Okay, I do not get a free trip to the Grand Canyon or Yellowstone or $3,000 in cash. I don't get those things. You have the chance to get those things at 4 o'clock every single weekday on my show next week. You have that opportunity. But my son can't win. So why is it that the King County employees can give grants to their relatives, to their friends? The legislation was introduced after an investigation found a county program manager oversaw about $813,000 in grant payments to businesses connected to 5 of her relatives. Man, what a racket. I picked the wrong business, Kevin. I could have been defrauding King County. Seems like it was pretty easy to get away with it for a while because nobody's going to jail. Nobody's going to jail. Oh, darn, the grift is over. Let's go rip off Washington State instead. They're not going to do anything about it. The reporting also found concerns had appeared in county records years earlier, but the county did not begin a formal investigation until 2025 because the only one who's interested in doing an investigation is Reagan Dunn. It wasn't until Nick Shirley's video comes out that all of a sudden they go, oh, this fraud is bad. Real bad. Super bad. Super, super, super bad. I don't mean like that terrible movie with Jonah Hill and Michael Cera. I don't know why people like that movie so much. I really don't. It's a terrible movie. It's a horrible. Is Kevin agreeing with me? It is a horrible movie. Super bad is super bad.
No, I'm disagreeing.
You're disagreeing with me?
It's a funny movie.
It is not. My wife was watching it literally the other day, and I go, I still hate this movie. The only part of that movie I like is the cops and McLovin. That is it. The rest of that movie is just dumb. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, most of those type movies are dumb.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of the point of them. But yeah, that movie's fun.
You know what it was? Maybe it hit too close to home. That movie reeks of New Jersey. It feels like a night in New Jersey, that movie. I don't know if it's even set in New Jersey. It just feels like New Jersey. And there's nothing people like me, by that I mean New Yorkers, hate more than New Jersey. That whole, oh man, I don't know why that movie bothers me so much. I know, unpopular opinion. The reporting also found concerns that at a time when families are stretching every paycheck, we have an obligation to ensure taxpayer money is protected, public confidence is restored, and everyone inside county government is held to the same standard, said Councilmember Reagan Dunn. Government doesn't earn public trust simply by asking for it. It earns trust through accountability. This legislation closes loopholes that allowed conflicts to exist in gray areas and replaces ambiguity with clear rules. So I ask you this. Why wasn't the legislation at the federal level, like for Feeding Our Future and all those programs that Ilhan Omar's buddies defrauded? Why didn't they have guardrails? Why didn't these programs have guardrails? Why didn't all those programs in Minnesota have guardrails? Why don't any of these programs have guardrails? Because they wanted the fraud. They knew it was a way to keep their voters satisfied because they could grift the government. And who cares? Who cares? It's just taxpayer money anyway. So who cares? Yeah, well, it turns out a lot of Americans care. Because when you're absolutely killing yourself trying to pay your taxes and a whole bunch of people are grifting off the government, you say, not only is that not fair, it's criminal. Absolutely criminal. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Zoran Mamdani booed off stage at an event in New York. Is the tide turning? Right in time for DSA members to get elected nationally. Give you all the details on that insane audio when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Do you think the tide is starting to turn where people are realizing the socialists suck and the DSA is terrible and awful? Or do you think they're just realizing Zoran Mamdani sucks? Maybe. Well, there was this event in New York the other day in Staten Island. Oh, Staten Island. Staten Island. Yeah, I want to live in a place built on top of a landfill. No, thank you. Anyway, he goes out to Staten Island. I know, I'm just insulting everybody today. New Jersey, Staten Island. You're hearing all my jokes. We're going to lose all our Staten Island listeners, Kevin. So what happens? He's at this event for the 43rd annual NYPD Patrol Bureau Staten Island National Night Out Against Crime event. You guys need to shorten that. That's a lot of words to pronounce there. So National Night Out, as we know, is on the first Tuesday of August. It's when people go out and have block parties with big bounce houses, and they have parties on the street with barbecues, and the police come out and hang out with them, and they close blocks off, and it's very, very nice. It's very fun. We do it here in Washington as well. So what happens? Zoran Mamdani showed up to one of these events run by the NYPD. Now, he got heckled. He got booed. You name it. Everything. As he went on stage, as he went off stage. Now, I want you to listen to this. I want you to decide if the tide is turning, or do you think the cops at the police event, when the anti-cop jihadi shows up, aren't happy to see him? This is him trying to give his speech. He spoke for 45 seconds and got off the stage. This is how bad it was. Get off our island. Okay, I like Staten Island now. I've changed my mind. I love them Staten Island people. He spoke for 45 seconds, and that's what you heard the whole time. Hang on, let's get the back end of that as he's leaving the stage. Hang on one second.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for some more dancing? Oh, no, we're not. No, we're not.
No dancing. Quick, no dancing. It's like the Footloose town. No dancing. Oh, dear. So, I'm going to ask you this. Do you think the tide is turning? Or do you think they just hate Mamdani? Or do you think he's just at a police event? So, obviously, the people there are going to hate Mamdani. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, my thing is, are people finally waking up to who Mamdani is, who the Democrat Socialists of America are, who all these jihadis are? Abdul El Sayed claims to be a very devout Muslim. Very devout Muslim. And he's all mad that these OnlyFans models keep popping up in his Instagram feed. Okay. Anybody know how Instagram works? If you look at something a lot, then it's going to keep popping up in your feed. My Instagram feed, politics and nerd stuff, like Star Wars, Star Trek, things like that. Oh, Fast and Furious is in there too. That's my Instagram feed. If you're looking at OnlyFans models, what's going to crop up in your feed? OnlyFans models. Just a hunch. Just a hunch right there. That's what's going to be cropping up in your Instagram feed. So you can complain about this stuff all you want, but you're the one doing it, bro. He says, like, you think about it, you're on Instagram. My team has access to my Instagram. And the things I actually look at on Instagram, of course, we get served on a For You page. But every third video that scrolls on its own is going to be some OnlyFans model. And it's because it clocked me as being a 40-something-year-old man. Kevin, I don't think you do the Instagram. I do the Instagram. I'm not seeing OnlyFans models every third video. I see Ghostbusters every third or fourth video.
Yeah, I don't do the Instagram, so I couldn't
You don't
tell
do the Instagram.
Yeah.
So wonder what he's looking at over there. It's your algorithm, dude. It's your algorithm. But meanwhile, as much as we joke about what the devout Muslim is looking at, turns out that actually this guy has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. This guy has ties to terror. His father-in-law is actually a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization. So during the hearing on jihadi terrorism in the U.S. just the other day, Senator Ted Cruz was actually calling this out and asking some of the experts who were testifying about the problems with the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S.
Do you believe that there is a Muslim Brotherhood branch operating in the United States?
Yes.
Does Abdul El Sayed's candidacy for senator in Michigan concern you?
Yes, sir, it does.
Why is that?
Well, to begin with, I look at the connections that his father-in-law, Chakaku Taib, has to Brotherhood-linked groups. This includes being the president at one time of CARE Michigan, also his presence on the Islamic Society of North America Founders Committee, which is only for those most exclusively devoted to ISNA and provides significant amounts of funding. There are other known Brotherhood members on that committee. I would also look at El Sayed's ties to a group called Mgage, which purports to be a Muslim sort of get out the vote or candidate recruitment organization, but it has close ties to CARE. It was created by a former CARE member who at one time was on a terror watch list and was also a consultant to convicted terrorist Sami al-Arian.
CARE, you say, huh? The unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terror financing trial, the Holy Land Foundation trial in U.S. history. How long have I been beating that drum for? Well, CARE was actually one of the featured discussions during this panel. Give a listen.
In 1993, leaders of the Palestine Committee held a meeting known as the 1993 Philadelphia meeting, which was lawfully wiretapped by the FBI. There, members of the Palestine Committee defined the scope of the conspiracy, which included supporting Hamas abroad and infiltrating universities, media, and politics here in the U.S. Why? To begin normalizing Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood extremist ideology in American society. They stated, quote, war is deception when plotting to lie to Americans. They also noted their intent to cleanse the curriculum in U.S.-based K-12 schools because, quote, we don't want our children growing up surrendering to the idea of peace with Jews. Their words. They recognized Hamas would be designated a terror organization, and they risked exposure. They agreed to continue to pursue their agenda by cloaking themselves under the cover of legitimacy. Evidence emerged at the trial that showed it was out of this conspiratorial meeting that CARE was created to protect the other elements of the Hamas support network.
What trial is she talking about, I wonder? Oh, the Holy Land Foundation trial, where you find out that CARE was one of the ones. And guess what CARE Washington is doing? Making sure that you have the school walkouts against Jews, making sure that anti-Semitism definitions are not adopted. But worse than that, these CARE representatives are running for office across the U.S., trying to get the anti-American ideology across the United States, doing exactly what they said they would do at that meeting in 1993. And you know, not a single Democrat was at that hearing. They all walked out. Every single one of them walked out. You know, Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand came out and endorsed Abdul al-Sayed, the terrorist-affiliated guy, the guy affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. The Democrat Party has been taken over by all this, and the rest of them, they're too afraid of losing their seats. So they just go along with it because they know they're going to be challenged next. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including a follow-up with regard to all those bad homeless numbers. It's even worse than you know. So much worse than you know. We'll have an expert join us, give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Today's Newsmaker Spotlight is brought to you by our friends over at Renewal by Anderson, Western Washington, windows and doors for every home. There was a recent op-ed in the Seattle Times. Yes, I still, from time to time, see articles in the Seattle Times that get sent to me. But this one was by one of our friends over at the Washington Policy Center, talking about how not just is our homelessness crisis bad, it's possibly the worst in the United States. Joining us now in studio to discuss, Policy Director of Public Safety Solutions for the Washington Policy Center, Eric Zimmerman. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Ari, I'm really excited to be here, and we got a lot to talk about.
We've never had you on before, so I'm excited about this too.
First time.
If there's something we are known for on the show, it is discussing the homeless. So let's start with the beginning. What'd you find out, and give us a summary of what you wrote to the Seattle Times.
Sure, and by the way, my background is I've been looking at problems like this around the world for 20 years. And working with governments, one of the things you often find is government doesn't understand its own problems really well. So when I started looking at Seattle, I expected maybe government doesn't know how bad it got. And so I started looking at some of the main things we'd look at. Well, how much did we grow in terms of, say, chronic homelessness? Turns out we grew the most of anywhere in the country. And so it's like, wow, okay, that's bad. That must have ripple effects. What else do we need to look at? So start looking at things like drug overdose deaths. We also grew the most in the country there. We were 29th ranked in the country for drug overdose deaths in 2014. We were actually 33rd in the country in 2019. But then by 2024, we were 4th. And so it's a massive transformation. And
so what caused that? Because those are huge numbers. Those are staggering numbers. What caused that?
Yeah, and you see those numbers everywhere now. It's like we're first in this and first in that. But it's hard to then take those numbers and say, well, one thing caused it, because I think we know, there could be lots of reasons that this happened. But I think we can acknowledge that there is a proven association between homelessness and substance use that has been, studied for decades.
Wait, hang on. Breaking news. It's not a homeless crisis. You're saying it's a drug crisis.
Right. And we call some of this bidirectional, right? Where if you have a massive change in Washington where many more adults have easy access to dangerous drugs, we can expect that a lot of those adults are going to lose their ability to provide for themselves. They're going to have an exhaustion of their resources. They're going to become homeless. So maybe that's one direction that it happens. And then also, if you become homeless, being homeless and having very immediate access to the drug dealer who is in the RV next to your tent is plausibly going to increase the rate at which you die of an overdose. And so this is kind of the two directions it can happen. Perhaps drug use can cause homelessness, or perhaps drug use can be worsened by homelessness. But I think we're seeing both things happening in Seattle. And I would argue that right now, Seattle is the worst place in the country for homelessness and drug use, more than anywhere else.
So what are we doing wrong, or what are we doing differently than other places? Because you came into the studio today, you showed me some charts. I'm looking at these charts. It's far and away worse. It's not, with these guys, we beat these guys by 10 or 12 or whatever it is. We're beating them by dozens of percentage points here.
Yeah, it's unimaginably worse. And some of these numbers can be difficult to pin down, but I'm going to give you one. The federal government tracks fentanyl overdoses that show up in hospitals where people survive the overdose because the hospital saves their life. The median state in 2025 was Georgia, and that means it's the middle in the country. There's half the states on one side, half the states on the other. We were at the top. We were number one, and we were 9 times higher than Georgia. And so that's how you can visualize it. If the average, the typical state, Georgia, right in the middle, and for us for fentanyl, we were 9 times higher in terms of the number of people that showed up in hospitals with fentanyl overdoses. That's how I think folks need to see it. It's extremely bad here, and we're far beyond the second-ranked state and far beyond the third-ranked state.
So how long have you been tracking this for? Because I'm going back to 2017 when I first started paying attention to these. And at the time, let me just take you back, you had Dow Constantine and you had, I think, Jenny Durkin in office, and they were suing Purdue Pharma and other companies, other drug companies. And in their lawsuits, it said 80% of the people on the streets have a substance abuse problem. But then when you would ask them about that in person, they would say, no, it's a housing problem. But you would say, guys, you literally wrote this in your lawsuits. Has it gotten worse than 80% about the people on the streets, do you think, right now?
Yeah, and, King County has grown in terms of chronic homelessness by 850%.
Wow.
And I understand why it was tempting, I think, for people in, maybe 2019, 2018 to say, well, hey, maybe homelessness is a housing problem, right? Maybe we can trace this to rising costs that we're seeing, because we see these two numbers rising together. Costs are going up and the number of people who are homeless is going up. Maybe that's an easy way to explain it. But the problem is that also requires that you factor in income. If you're saying that rent is going up, well, what's happening with income? And in Washington, rent and income have gone up by the same amount. Basically every income band, and the minimum wage has gone up 75%. The cost of rent for minimum wage renters has gone up by about 75%. So we don't really see a disturbance there. But what we do see is a disturbance of many, 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 many more people and households that are not earning anything or next to nothing. The only income they have is public benefits. And that number in King County, if we quantify that as the number of households that are earning less than 10% of a typical household income. If you look at that number, how many households are there? It's doubled. It's doubled over the last 10 years.
So let me do some quick math here for a second off the top of my head. And maybe we should bring in Ryan Frost next time to be sitting right next to you for a different part of the Washington Policy Center. We're talking with Eric Zimmerman, who's the Policy Director for Public Safety Solutions. We have all this wealth leaving town. Now what you're telling me is we have a whole bunch of, I don't want to say deadbeats, but we have a whole bunch of people who are not earning as much coming into town that we're taking care of. They need to widen their tax base. They're chasing away their tax base. And what you're saying is they're doing it in favor of people living on the streets probably, or people who can't afford the high income or the high rent that's here. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, this is the strange thing about Washington that I think is so backwards, is we create a legal environment in which it's possible for drugs to basically be legalized. And we've created an environment in which all kinds of crimes are now essentially legal. You're unlikely to encounter legal consequences for any number of things you can do, both felonies and misdemeanors. And so we do that. And that's going to create a reality where many, many more people are going to fall into crisis. And you're not going to have the interruption that government can provide to save someone's life or to keep them from getting deeper and deeper into crisis. So we've made it possible for many more people to fall into crisis. And then we've also tried to solve that crisis in a backwards way, where we've said, oh, wow, so many people are in crisis now. What has happened? Well, we have to blame capitalism. We have to blame the markets. And so we're going to try to solve an imagined problem in the markets, but not really address the actual crisis that's happening with people, where people maybe have serious mental illness, they're desperately addicted to substances. They're not trying to solve for that. They're trying to solve for this premise that if you just get someone in crisis housed, the problem goes away.
And that's not what happens, because anybody who knows anybody who has drug problems, what happens is now they're just doing the drugs in the house.
Yes.
And sometimes they're so out of their minds, they go back to the streets. We haven't had a conversation before. This is the first time we're talking, so you may not know the story, but my father found a guy who he went to school with actually in Grand Central Station one day. Brought him home, lived in our house for a weekend, and then he went back to the streets because he wasn't in the right state of mind. He wanted to be in his tunnel in Grand Central Station. And people don't understand that. And that was before we had all these problems with opioids and fentanyl and everything else. That was in the 1980s. Now we're talking about this here. So we're talking with Eric Zimmerman, who's the Policy Director of Public Safety Solutions for the Washington Policy Center. What's the solution? Because it looks like Katie Wilson's doubling down. It looks like Bob Ferguson's doubling down. It looks like Nick Brown is literally suing the Trump administration to double down on this. What's the solution?
No, I've got a solution for you, but I want to first identify a clear problem. Can I do that?
Go ahead.
I think one of the problems is politicians in places like Washington, they think that somehow these problems cannot be understood. And they think the only people that can explain them are academics. And so they say, well, we've got something simple that seems like a problem, but we have to have an academic explain it to us. Like bring in the wizard, have them read from the spell book so that we all can understand what's happening.
I'm sorry to laugh. That is such a great analogy.
But this I think is fine if you're trying to find out, well, what might cause cancer? You know, I think that's where we want to consult the academics. But if you take very simple things that you see and you say the only way we can understand what's happening in these simple problems is by consulting an academic, I think you become more blind and you make it harder for you're being able to see that problem. And this I think is the solution. Let's just look to the states that don't have this problem and say, well, what are they doing differently than us? And if our problem has gotten so bad, what did we do differently at the same time? Well, for a while, camping was legal. You could not regulate it as government. Continued through today, basically drugs are legal in Washington state. You know, they're technically a gross misdemeanor, but we don't prosecute for that and jail for that almost ever. And we've made all kinds of crimes essentially legal where you're not going to go to jail. Let's look at the states that don't have a homelessness problem, that don't have a drug crisis, and say, what is different there? Let's do things more like they do.
So wait one second, because I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a minute here, okay? Everybody here in Seattle government and Washington state government and King County government wants to save everybody. right? So they're going to say, well, those states aren't actually dealing with their problem. Now we have to deal with their problem. How do you convince them that they're actually enabling the problem rather than dealing with the problem?
I think that convincing takes time, because could you imagine being the person that was so wrong for so long, and looking at the families and the parents who've lost a child, children who've lost a parent, and saying, I was so wrong for so long that 20,000 family stories were destroyed because of decisions I made. You know, the weight of that is unbelievable. And I think that's what a lot of politicians are confronting and resisting right now, is the acceptance of they were a part of that. Destroying the story of families that didn't deserve to have their story destroyed. And I think we need time, we need patience, we need to have good data, which is the work I'm doing. And this has been a personal story for me too. It's affected my family. And I meet them where they're at. I sit down, we talk, we compare the two different theories of what might be going on. And I help them explain that the story that we can tell through really good federal data is the accurate story. It's the believable story. And it directs us towards what the solutions are. If people are deeply in crisis and deeply vulnerable, they are often not in a position where they can voluntarily come up with a plan to correct that course. And if we continue to leave everything voluntary to an addict of fentanyl, someone who's addicted to methamphetamine that's already destroyed a lot of their ability to reason, if we leave that up to them to do voluntarily, they're going to die on the streets of Seattle. And the solution for us is to say, look, someone is so deep in crisis that we have to intervene on their behalf because we love them, we value who they are as a person. We see the family that is so broken over what's happened to their child, and we're going to intervene on their behalf, and we're going to get this person help. And we know that they're going to thank us later for it. That's the solution, and I think that's what Washington lawmakers are so afraid to do.
I come back to this all the time. It's let's say you're driving through a parking lot, and you see a parent yelling at a kid, and he's holding him by the scruff of the neck, and you're thinking, wow, that's the worst parent ever. You don't know that the parent just grabbed the kid and stopped him from walking in front of a car. And he's giving him the tough love that you can't just walk in front of a car. But you don't know that because you come into it later. And it seems like Seattle is willing to let lots of people walk into that car and not stop them from doing that.
Yeah, and I think if we just imagine, let's say a room of 100 parents who all lost a child on the streets of Seattle to a drug overdose, and the mayor stands up and says, I'm sorry, you know, we tried everything we could. We offered them services, they didn't want them, and they died on our streets. How long would it take for one parent to scream at them, I wish you had arrested my child?
Yep.
And let's save their life tonight, and then tomorrow we can figure out what to do next.
Because this is what I hear from parents who come to events all the time. They always say, thank God my kid got arrested because it saved their life. From people who have recovered, thank God I hit rock bottom because it saved my life. I hear this all the time.
Yeah, and I talk to people who have experienced homelessness, and far more often I hear someone say, jail saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the twisted, perverse story that we tell ourselves in Seattle is somehow jail is going to ruin their life, when in fact it might be the thing that saves them.
Exactly. And it also sometimes saves others too, because they can tell their buddies, here's how I did it. We've seen this happen, like our friends over at Battlefield Addiction. We talked to Andrea Suarez. We talked to our friends over at The More We Love. We talked to all these organizations, and they're all saying the same thing. And they're the ones who are successful, but the organizations that get the millions of dollars keep getting it wrong. Eric Zimmerman, Policy Director of Public Safety Solutions for the Washington Policy Center. Thank you for the concise, analytical version of this without my fire and brimstone, because that actually brings the numbers to what I'm saying all the time. I really appreciate you bringing all that and having the facts to present to everybody on this.
No, Ari, I appreciate being on, and you know, I want to close with this. We love people, and people who are broken deserve our help, and they are worthy, they're lovable, and the reality is the strategy we have in Washington is the opposite of love. It's harm, and it kills people.
Couldn't have said it better myself, so that's a great place to end the interview. Appreciate you being with us. Eric Zimmerman, Policy Director for Public Safety Solutions at the Washington Policy Center. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder for everybody, head on over to KVI.com. Over there, you can check out articles, you can check out podcasts, and while you're there, you can sign up to become a KVI insider. That way you find out about all our events, all our contests, and get to know about that stuff before anybody else, and that way you don't get closed out of them. Actually, I was offered to go to this event last night. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it down in Vancouver, Washington. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was in Washington State. And they said, hey, Ari, can you come down or whatever? And I'm like, okay, 3 hours down, 3 hours back. I did that just a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it work out. I had some family commitments, had a few other things going on here with the show. But Speaker of the House was here. Why does the Speaker of the House go to Vancouver, Washington? Well, he only travels if he thinks somebody's going to win. And that means he brings the GOP money with him usually. Why was he there? Because one of the most vulnerable seats in Congress and one of the easiest pickups for the GOP is in Southwest Washington, which is Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. Her own side doesn't like her very much. And for an incumbent to only get 30-some-odd% in a primary, that's bad news. Super bad news. So when last I looked at this thing, she had about 38%. John Braun had about 38%. John Braun was actually pulling ahead. But this guy, Brent Henrich, something. This guy, Brent, took 15% of her votes. He's on the left. But are they actually her votes? And this is the interesting thing. He's more liberal than her. She's trying to thread the needle, and she's not doing a great job of it. But Henrich, who now of recent totals that we just checked is over 16% of the vote, said he's not going to endorse Gluesenkamp-Perez. So you may think to yourself, well, normally we take the Democrats and we add them together and that's going to be the win and then John Braun gets blown out. No. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez is so unpopular in her own district that actually a lot of people might stay home for this election. He's not endorsing her. He told KUOW he's not going to. Absolutely no way, shape, or form will I support her, he said in an interview. I want her out of office, he continued. Just because you're not a fascist doesn't mean you're a Democrat. What is happening here? What is this? He said he didn't vote for her in her two prior elections. He said he would be fine with Braun winning and turning the district red, but he won't be voting for him. He said he'll be using the write-in option in November, but declined to disclose who he'd write in. Karl Marx? I mean, who are we writing? Jimothy? He stopped short of saying his voters should do the same. He said, I've told my supporters what I'm doing, and I've told them to vote their conscience, and that anyone they vote for should earn their vote. This is great. Democrat on Democrat action. This is delicious. So for those of you who think there's no good news out of the primaries, there is good news out of the primaries. I'm going to tell you something else. If you live in Southwest Washington and you live in this district, you better be voting. This one is going to come down to, you want to guess? I will guess it's going to come down to about 1,000 votes. 1,000 votes. That's what I really think. GOP should be putting all their efforts into this race because this one's actually winnable. Absolutely should do this. So she's in big, big trouble. And don't forget, this has been what the polling has been telling us this whole time. It's a toss-up. It could go either way. There have been 2, 3 polls on this so far, some from Republican organizations, some from pretty far left organizations, and they're all saying the same thing. That's what the truth actually is. And now there's this whole campaign against her with all this dirt from her past coming up because the left hates her, the right hates her, everybody wants her gone. That's how unpopular she is. State Senator John Braun has a real opportunity here to take that seat and put the district back in Republican hands. This is interesting. This is fascinating. We're going to follow her career with great interest. Up next, final hour free for all. More companies leaving Washington. Hasan Piker not allowed to come to University of Washington. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves. Looks like Seattle Police Department, 2 weeks after a shooting at Bite of Seattle, still doesn't have any information on the suspects. Who's actually running the show over there these days? But before we get to any of that, my friends, got some more information on what's going on at the University of Washington. Now, on Monday, we found out, because they started advertising the event, that the University of Washington was going to be hosting a speaking engagement with anti-American millionaire Marxist Hasan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11, called Jews inbred, described Hamas as 1,000 better times than Israel and Republicans, and has promoted terrorist propaganda. This is a guy who dresses like Mao. This is a guy who wants capitalists to be murdered in the streets, landlords to be murdered in the streets. I mean, this guy's just a delight, let me tell you.
Doesn't matter if rapes happen on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
America deserved 9/11, dude. It. I'm saying it.
It's my favorite flag.
Yeah.
Hezbollah.
Okay, that's the charming individual we are talking about here. And probably the reason that the university schools put this out that are sponsoring this event is because his name is real big right now, because he's basically the unofficial spokesman or official spokesman, campaign spokesman for Abdul El-Sayed, the Senate candidate out of Michigan who won his primary for the Democrats the other night by 1 percentage point. Here's what this amazingly eloquent person said right afterwards.
Like, everyone being like, Abdullah's a ton of work to do mending bridges. Here's the take nuke for you, okay? You are all unbelievably Islamophobic pieces of okay?
Charming individual. That was when he was asked if they were going to, make nice in the Democrat Party now that half the Democrats voted for the other candidate. Instead, no, let's just destroy them. Let's just destroy them. So UW's Office of Public Lectures was advertising an evening with Hasan Piker, presenting him as a Twitch personality and a major public speaker. They whitewashed everything. Everything. They made him just sound like, he's a little edgy. A little edgy. It was sponsored by UW's Henry M. Jackson School of International Studies and the Graduate School. Now, the Henry M. Jackson School of International Studies has really gone off the rails recently. And it seems like basically they think of themselves as the resistance. So you're the resistance at University of Washington, one of the most liberal college campuses in the U.S. You're the resistance. Okay, got it. What are they resisting exactly? Well, look, after the Hamas encampment and the riots and all the other craziness at University of Washington, a lot of donors pulled their money. Trump administration started looking into them, and things weren't so great at the school, and they realized that they had a problem. So the administration, believe it or not, has actually been doing a pretty good job recently cutting back on the insanity, cutting down on, look, it's still UW. It's still UW. But they've been doing a better job. Truly, they really have. They've been trying. They did an interview with me. They had the president of the university talk to me. Let's be real about that for a second, okay? And it was their idea. They're trying to mend fences, and they know the biggest critic in Washington, of University of Washington, is yours truly. So my guess is what happened here, and a few little birdies have told me a few little things. I haven't confirmed them yet, but I have no reason to doubt my sources on this, is basically the Henry M. Jackson School of International Studies and the Graduate School did this without telling anybody in the UW administration. UW administration found out about it when members of the media started going, you're having this guy come speak? And apparently, everybody who was complaining about it were all the people going, you want the guy who said America deserved 9/11 speaking on campus? You want the guy who says you should go out and murder capitalists speaking on campus? And apparently there's a whole bunch of people on the left saying this too, not just people on the right. Apparently the Jewish stuff barely even came up. You know what came up before that? So Hasan Piker has a dog, and apparently he's got it wired up to a shock collar, and he enjoys shocking it for the audience on his Twitch stream. So you'll hear him like say something to the dog and then press a button, and then you hear the yip. Apparently even animal rights groups are mad about this guy speaking on campus. So you managed to tick off everybody by burning this guy where you thought it would be edgy. And it was the Henry M. Jackson's Resistance. And now we found out just before the show started that the event's been canceled. The event has been canceled, according to intrepid reporter Jessica Rusak-Hoffman over at the Jewish News Syndicate. University of Washington canceled an event with anti-Semitic streamer Hasan Piker, which was scheduled for January. Now, this is something else about this, by the way. They don't normally advertise speeches this far in advance. So why are you advertising it now? Probably because his name's in the news. Some people in the know told me. UW doesn't advertise these things till like a month before. So it's a little weird they're advertising it this far in advance. It's July. Oh, now it's August. August, September, October, November, December. You're advertising this event 6 months in advance, and you're already having people sign up for it? That's a long way to go, especially for college kids who don't remember what happened the night before. And you're advertising this thing that far in advance. Here's something else. University of Washington, big, beautiful campus with lots of big, beautiful buildings, with lots of big, beautiful auditoriums. Why are you renting Town Hall in downtown Seattle for this? It's a big venue. Costs a lot of money. I know people who've run events at Town Hall. That place is super expensive. Why are you not having it on campus? Why are you having it at Town Hall? Why are you spending that kind of money? And did you clear this with the administration? You're basically using all their logos and stuff to advertise this. Did you tell anybody? So, not only did the university plan to host the hateful commentator, according to JNS, upon whom it heaped praise in the description of the event, which 2 of the university schools plan to co-host, but the public school had also suggested that attendees pay $10 each for tickets. Well, I guess Town Hall is pretty expensive. You got to cover it, right? So something that's interesting here is earlier in the week, we reached out to University of Washington. And we said, hey, guys, what's up with this? What's going on here? And they got back to us with a statement, and this was earlier this week. So earlier, you had a spokesman for UW told us the Office of Public Lectures selects its speakers independently. UW executive leadership does not provide input. Annually, the Office of Public Lectures hosts speakers representing a broad range of perspectives. And it's important to note that invitation to speak does not constitute an endorsement of any speaker's views by the University of Washington. The spokesman added, speakers receive a nominal honorarium and travel reimbursement. These costs are funded entirely through OPL endowments and are not supported by state funds. Okay, that's nonsense because these funds are fungible. Okay, let's do that. But now they're singing a very different tune. They said that UW is dedicated to the free exchange of ideas, including on controversial topics and involving provocative speakers. After Hasan Piker was announced as a speaker for the 2026-2027 Speaker Series, there was a review of the process by which the event was planned. It was determined that the process for organizing this event did not meet the necessary level of rigor for university-hosted events in the Speaker Series. As a result, this event will not be held. Translation. Nobody told us. We're taken by surprise, and we don't want the heat because we're currently under investigation by the Trump department. We don't want to deal with the Trump's Justice Department on this. We don't want to deal with it at all. And we already started trying to get our donors back, and now you want to lose our donors again? Are you people stupid? What? I can imagine the conversations at UW. Actually, they probably wouldn't be something like that. They'd probably be like, people, however you identify. I mean, we're trying to not alienate anybody, and we're trying to welcome more people in, and look what's going on now. We know it's something like that. Going forward, procedures will be updated to ensure the standards we have for university-hosted events like the Speaker Series are met, particularly so that we can help elevate the level of dialogue on divisive topics during a polarized time in our country. Okay, I'm going to put this one out to the crowd for a second. Do you think UW did the right thing? Do you think UW did the right thing? We believe in freedom of speech. Personally, as much as I'm happy they canceled this, I'm kind of a little upset. Let him spew his vitriol because I plan to be in the front row recording every minute of the stuff that lunatic says to say, this is the left. This is who they are. This is what they stand for. This is their spokesperson, and none of them will condemn this guy. None of them will condemn him. Not Bernie Sanders, he supports him. Not Chuck Schumer, not Kristen Gillibrand, not Amy Klobuchar, not Nancy Pelosi, not Kamala Harris, none of them. Not Gavin Newsom, not Pete Buttigieg. They all say it's a big tent, big tent. Let's show them what they let in their big tent. Look, the Republican Party has been getting rid of their crazies. You got rid of Tom Massey. You got rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. You're dumping them. The Democrats seem to be collecting new ones, and now they're taking those guys too. Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, and they're now all the heroes of the left. So for me, do you think the University of Washington should have canceled Hasan Piker? Do you think so? Do you think they should have done it? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Bob in the 509 says, someone should petition the UW to remove Scoop Jackson's name from their School of International Studies. He was by and large a great man and a true patriot. Association with the current perspective of the indoctrinal so-called school and its staff likely has Senator Jackson spinning in his grave like a dervish. I'm not disagreeing with you entirely, but wasn't Scoop Jackson the one who wanted to defund the CIA before 9/11? Well, wasn't that Scoop Jackson? I mean, I understand he's a more moderate Democrat, especially when you look at the Democrats these days. I don't remember him being that perfect, though, Bob. I mean, look, I didn't know him that well. I didn't follow him at the time. I didn't know him at all, personally, so I couldn't tell you. But I seem to remember that little thing about him. I mean, I know he was well-respected. I know people liked him a lot. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, look, the school has probably lost its mind, and it's named after him, and he was seen as a more moderate type. So, what do you guys think? Should they have canceled Hasan Piker or not? We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Commander George out in Kenmore. Commander, tell us what you think. Should we have canceled him or not?
Well, we used to call it U-snub when I was Navy recruiting down at Sandpoint. But they should have, and that's from a U-snub graduate, but they should have let him speak, but only if he spoke in red square right next to the Pappy Boyington Medal of Honor winner, famous naval aviator plaque. They disallowed the statue of him and put a plaque instead.
Ah, I see. Yeah, aren't these the same guys who want to destroy the George Washington statue and they vandalize it all the time and they want to rename the school or something?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Pretty sure it's the same guys. George, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Have a great weekend. Do you want to be part of the show? You give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. Do you think Hasan Piker should have been allowed to speak at University of Washington? 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Me personally, let them stink in it. Let them soak in it. Let them deal with what they hath wrought. You know, now your problem with University of Washington, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. They're in a tough situation. You got this Henry M. Jackson School goes rogue. You got them in the graduate school going rogue. And now UW administration has to clean it up. And now you might even blow up his profile because from what I heard, when he got the news of this around the same time we did, 2 hours ago, Hasan Piker's been going nuts on his Twitch stream saying it's the Democrats and the Jews. The Democrats and the Jews, and Ari's wife who wrote the article. Democrats and the Jews who canceled him. That's who it was. I got to tell you, I don't think that was it. I really don't. I think what happened was they said, you expect us to deal with all the security and everything this guy's going to want? How much did you guys actually offer to pay him? A small honorarium? The dude's a gajillionaire. He is. For a communist, he does very, very well. You know what I think? They saw his speaker fees. I think that's what probably happened. And they said, you know how much money we're going to lose? And we're under investigation by the Trump administration, and you're going to bring in the spokesman for the Democrats? While all this is going on, who says America deserved 9/11? That we should kill capitalists? That we should murder them in the streets? You're going to bring that guy in? Okay, here's a question. How long do you think until the protests start? How long until the protests start? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? We're going to see a flyer tonight for a rally tomorrow at Red Square, or are they going to wait and start organizing tomorrow? What do you think, guys? This one here from Dan Smith. Well, they're definitely already organizing. Yes, exactly right. That's probably what's happening. See, this one here from Robin Lakewood says, let them appear. Let them see who shows up. Exactly. I mean, this is the kind of stuff where right here we go. Chris says, I don't think they should have canceled him just because of freedom of speech. And I don't want to be a hypocrite on that. However, I do question when they go out and book a speaker like this. Right, that's the thing. Who booked him originally? Who did that? And actually, I'm not faulting the UW administration. I'm faulting the UW administration for the lame statement they came out with beforehand. This guy never should have been booked. This one here, see, Chris. I'm assuming there's a pretty large speaker fee and a guarantee for the speaker, and I'm wondering if you have any idea where those funds come from. Well, as we said in the statement, they come from that endowment fund. I would assume as a state-run institution would come out of the budget for the school, and therefore would taxpayers' money be any insight on this? So we're going to do a little check on that. Ted and Rob are checking me on this. They say Scoop Jackson died in 1982. Yeah, I still think he wanted to defund the CIA. I have to go back and double-check that one, but I'm pretty sure he did. We'll go back and double-check that one. Hey, it's still before 9/11. It doesn't mean it was right before 9/11. It was just long before 9/11. Yeah, because we didn't need the CIA in the 80s or the 90s, right? I'll go back and double-check that. I will fact-check that one. I don't know enough about Scoop Jackson, but I'm pretty sure he was the one who wanted to do it. I will double-check that for all of you. But yes, looking at this, it's a matter of this guy never should have been booked in the first place. So who actually booked him? And what is the approval process for speakers at the University of Washington? Here's something else. Who's paying for this? I assume a guy like him demands that he has to have security and he has to have first-class accommodations. I assume all of this. I assume it. Oh, wait, here we go. Matt Gilbert just sent me this. Apparently, Hannah Krieg is already talking about how they're already talking about being mad about this. University of Washington canceled Hasan the Hun. His handle is Hasan the Hun? Okay. Appearance in January, but if he already has his flight booked, my calendar is clear. Oh, really? You think he already booked his flight for January? Okay, sure. All right. Sure. Yeah, I bet you now the protests are going to begin. Just watch. You know what I think we should do? File a bunch of public disclosure requests. Let's file a bunch of public disclosure requests, find out how much they were going to pay him and who was going to be paying it. Oh, I got work to do as soon as the show's over today. I want to know who booked this guy, how much they were. What was this nominal fee? This nominal fee that UW says. Who was responsible for booking him? You know the problem with the University of Washington? They delay these things for like a year. A year. I think it was a year before I got back all the Gaza encampment stuff. Yeah, we'll be finding out who that is, and we'll find out if they still have a job afterwards. Speaking of people who don't have a job anymore, we got a new police chief because Katie Wilson fired the last one, but still don't have any suspects in the shooting of Biden, Seattle. We'll discuss when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded runs from 6 to 7 p.m. as soon as we are done today. It's all content from today, but content you might have missed. Thank you to our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms, for sponsoring that segment. Now, switching gears back to things that are happening here in Seattle. Where is the description for the Bite of Seattle killers? Where are they? There's at least 2 of them. They're still at large. They took their guns with them. We don't know where they are. Haven't heard anything about it. Seattle Interim Police Chief Andre Sales has been on the job for a week and says that the measure of his success will be solving the Bite of Seattle shootings. Well, last Friday, I sat at your press conference with Katie Wilson, and you said you had suspects. You had suspects, but you weren't going to give out their descriptions because you didn't want to paint the wrong people. So, did you have the wrong people, or do you have suspects, and why aren't they arrested yet? Is it because they're juveniles? Is it because of the pigmentation of their skin? Why haven't they been arrested yet? I got to assume you got camera footage of all this stuff somewhere, maybe. 3 people were killed, and we still don't have a description of the suspects. By the way, this dude still lives in Chicago. By the way, a huge amount of the command staff of the Seattle Police Department lives in the Midwest. We can't find anybody locally. We can't promote from within. We got to bring them in from Chicago because Chicago is known for good job in dealing with gang violence and crime, right? Yeah, they're the gold standard. How many people were killed there last weekend? 50, 60 in gang violence and shootings? So, what are we going to do with this guy? He says in this interview with Como News that the rocky waters, as he described them, stem in part from the circumstances surrounding Barnes' departure and the inevitable questions that followed about instability inside SPD. I don't think anybody had instability inside SPD. I think people had questions about instability inside the mayor's office. He said his goal is to combat uncertainty with consistent leadership and keep the department moving forward. Great. When are you going to arrest the shooters? Do we even know where they are? Are they in Australia by now? Sales says he met with the detectives leading the Seattle Center investigation and believes investigators are making progress toward piecing together what happened before, during, and after the shooting. That's great. Who are the suspects? He says, but despite earlier suggestions that arrests could be close, Sales would not put a timetable on when they might come. His reason? Accuracy over speed. I don't want to create any injustices for anyone. We want to make sure that we're combing through the evidence that we have, making sure it's linked to the appropriate person. Investigators, he said, are working through a significant amount of video and other evidence. So I assume you have a description. Can you give us the video? Can you give us the evidence? Perhaps somebody might recognize them. Just like with the other gang members they were able to find on the internet in 30 seconds. You know what? If you don't have the cops for it, put it on the internet. We'll find them. Just put it up. We will figure out who they are. Just watch. He said detectives are examining whether the shooting may be connected to multiple other incidents. Asked specifically about violence along North Aurora Avenue, he said there might be a nexus, but cautioned that investigators have not definitively established a connection to the Bite of Seattle shooting. Hang on a second. These are South Seattle gangs. What are they doing up on Aurora Avenue? Ah, I see. Wait, these are minors. What are they doing up on? Oh, I see. I understand. I'm piecing all this together myself right now. Now I understand. Do you have any confidence in this guy? I'll tell you what, if there's an arrest next week, in this case, I'll have a little bit more confidence. Right now, I really don't. Would it be nice to have more cameras around? I mean, we could discuss the surveillance issue, but if you don't have enough police officers, we should have more cameras, right? Well, days after some of Seattle's largest venues and organizations called on Mayor Katie Wilson to reactivate and expand the city's surveillance camera network, members of the Seattle City Council moved in the opposite direction, voting to redirect money intended for cameras toward community-based violence interruption programs. What does that actually mean? Violence interruption. How have those programs worked out so far? Have we stopped violence? It's only gotten worse. A divided council committee voted 3-1 to move $250,000 previously allocated for CCTV expansion on Capitol Hill into funding for community violence interruption ambassadors. Well, doesn't that sound official? Does that mean police officers? Or does that mean therapists? Oh, social workers. Does it mean social workers? What are we talking about here? Are we talking about those scared straight programs? According to Fox 13, Councilmember Rob Saka abstained. Abstained. Aren't you the one who wants the cameras? The proposal now heads to the full council for a final vote next week. The move comes as Seattle City Hall faces mounting pressure over public safety as decision to keep the camera program on hold. Previously approved funding was intended to expand cameras on Capitol Hill near Garfield High School and the Chinatown International District, but Wilson's administration has paused the expansion while outside organizations conduct review of the system's privacy protections and effectiveness. Those reviews are expected to be completed in September. So maybe for now we could have them turned on, and if you feel there's any real big issues, we can turn them off then, just days before the committee vote. Leaders representing some of Seattle's most prominent venues, events, and tourism interests urged Wilson to reactivate the city's CCTV cameras and expand coverage to additional high-traffic areas. Right. You had the Seattle Convention Center, you had the Storm, you had the Ballpark Association, which means all the stadiums. You had everybody asking them to turn these things back on, especially near the stadiums, because things were getting so bad. And their decision, let's shift the money over to some more of these groups that are probably corrupt. Let's do that. Let's shift it over there. You had Chihuly Garden and Glass, the Capitol Hill Block Party. Even the lefties, like the Storm and the Capitol Hill Block Party, are begging for help. The Space Needle. I mean, everybody's asking for this. Chihuly literally had a guy break in and start shattering their glass last year, and they don't want to turn them on. If you have the cameras inside Seattle Center, you might already have these guys in custody. You said there's no cameras there. I find that hard to believe. One of our listeners recommended I go knocking on the businesses in Seattle Center. Hey, it's just that maybe if I have some extra time on Monday, I'll go do that. Hey, you got any footage of what happened? You got any footage? Ari Hoffman from KVI, get out of my store. Kevin shaking his head. He's like, yep, that's exactly what would happen. That's exactly. Hi, I'm with the media. Can I see some of your camera footage from the shooting? No, you're a racist. Cameras are racist. Well, then why do you have the cameras? For our safety. Don't you know that? Are there any sane businesses over there? The monorails run pretty well. Wait, you're telling me the monorail doesn't have cameras on it? Monorail probably has cameras. Now, mind you think they don't have exterior ones around the stations? The shooting was right near one of the monorail stations. You think they don't have cameras of the whole thing? I think I should talk to our friends over at the monorail. Or I don't have any friends at the monorail. I think I should go make friends with the people over at the monorail. Maybe the Space Needle, I won't say where I got it from. I can cut out the things that say Seattle Space Needle Northwest Approach. I can do that. I can censor this video for you guys. You send it to me. Maybe we'll catch some criminals that shot up Seattle Center. If the SPD chief is too inept to do this, I can do this. No problem. I'll take care of this. Send it to me. We're real good at finding people. If anybody has footage of this and you think you actually have the killers in it, email me, arikvi.com. That's arikvi.com. And let's see who can solve this case faster, SPD or me. Let's do that. Me, the one-man show, or SPD. Now, mind you, I assume it's because there's probably a description they don't like of the suspects. And because Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson doesn't like the description, and this dude was appointed by Katie Wilson, I assume that's why we don't have the description of the 2 suspects, at least, who are still at large. Okay, we're going to start today. Now, if they get it tomorrow, I'm kind of going to laugh and see like, oh, I got showed up on my own show, right? That was that. But, hey, somebody got a lead for me. We'll follow it. We'll track it down. We'll do that. Up next, my friends, Lars will be unleashed. Got some stories about, are the Portland Trailblazers moving out of Portland? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570, KVI. Well, now that everybody's talking about the Seahawks being sold because now you might have new ownership and they're talking about prospective owners, the question is, are they going to stay in Seattle? Now, odds are they probably will because they have such a huge market share. But the question is, are the Trailblazers going to stay in Portland? I'm so excited that every single week I get to talk to my buddy Lars Larson, whose show you can catch from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, you've been following this very, very closely. Apparently, the Trailblazers want a whole bunch of money for a new stadium and the city doesn't want to give it to them?
Right. I mean, but it gets more complicated than that. Understand this, that Paul Allen owned the team. The estate of Paul Allen owned it after Allen's death. And they also owned the Moda Center, which Allen built with his own money. It was there was a little bit of public money in the sidewalks and the streets, but the Moda Center itself was paid for by a private individual, Paul Allen. So when he passed, it was in the estate of Paul Allen. 2 years ago, they made the offer. The estate made the offer to the city of Portland. We'll sell it to you for $1. Which the idiot trust fund kid, the mayor at the time, Ted Wheeler, who's a complete dummy, said, sure. All he did was he put the city on the hook, because if it had been owned by the Allen estate, when they sold the team, they would have said, and we want to sell you we'll put the Moda Center in as part of the deal. And if it needs any fixing up, the new owner of the team would have to do it. Once the city agreed to take it on, and here's what's really crazy about it. Ari, when you dig into the ownership deals on these, especially the ones where, in this case, it was built by a private individual, the city of Portland gets they get $1 a year in rent from the Blazers for use of this. At the time, it was a $300 million facility. Now it's probably worth more like $600 or $800 million. And they say it needs at least $500 million in fix-up, although most people have seen it say, it looks fine to me, but they want to go in and refresh everything. And so they've got dreams of putting $600 million into it. And Tom Dundon, the guy who bought the team, said, either fix it up or I'm leaving. And I thought he had them over a barrel, even though the deal they got right now is they don't get any rent. The minute the city took it over 2 years ago, they stopped getting over $1 million a year in property taxes from it because government doesn't pay property taxes on the properties it owns. They get none of the concessions revenue during the Blazer games, and they even lose most of the concessions revenue in the non-Blazer events that happen at the Moda, and the Blazers get the parking revenue. So it's like you don't own the facility, but you get all the goodies from it, and you pay none of the costs. So now the government is falling all over itself, saying we've got to get this stuff for billionaire Tom Dundon, or he'll leave town with the team. So the state has ponied up $350 million. Multnomah County just yesterday voted $100 million, and they admit they have no idea where they're going to get the money, but they've committed $101 million. And the city is being asked for $120 million. Total of all funds, about $600 million. And then I found out, and I'll have to credit the Fish Wrapper, the Oregon Live, the newspaper, the NBA charges a transfer fee as a league if you want to move a team. Did you know that?
Yes. Yeah, it's probably a lot of money. It's like how they charge franchise fees.
It's $1 billion.
Yeah.
Now, if Dundon comes and says, you either put $600 million into fixing up the Moda or I'll leave town. If the city has the guts to say, we're calling your bluff, go ahead, leave town. It's going to cost him $1 billion to leave town. Now, if he had come to the city originally, I still don't like public subsidies of these things, but if Dundon had come to the city and said, look, the place needs $500 to $600 million in fix up, I'll put up half. You guys pay the other half. That I could have seen as at least a possible deal. But in this case, Dundon has basically just arrogantly said, you guys pay all of the costs or I'm taking the team and leaving town.
And here's something else. Every time they do a financial review, it's Forbes or the Wall Street Journal, even ESPN. Yep. Anytime they do one of these, the math never pencils out for one of these stadiums ever, 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 ever. And then there's something else to consider. So let's say it's $1 billion for a franchise fee. Then you got to move the team. Then you got to change all the material on the uniforms, especially if you're getting a new name. I mean, one of the reasons the Utah Jazz is still the Utah Jazz when they came from New Orleans is because that costs so much money to change all that stuff. You go, what the hell
does the Jazz have to do with Utah? That doesn't even make any sense. I mean, make it the bobsleds or the ski slopes or who knows what that's out there. But instead, they kept it with the Jazz because it was so expensive to change all that kind of stuff. So do you think that Portland has the upper hand here, especially given the fact that there's no basketball team in Seattle? Or do you think it's now that there might be a basketball team in Seattle, the owner has the upper hand and he might be willing to spend the money because he thinks he can get more revenue in a place like Nashville?
Well, and he probably can, because understand that Oregon and Washington are making the same colossal mistake. The biggest corporate entities in the states are leaving, or they're at least shifting much of their operations out. Amazon, Boeing, Intel. Intel is not apparently on the cutting wave of AI. So they've got all those problems that the people who typically would buy the Sky Suites, pay the gigantic amounts of money. And it is a gigantic amount of money. I knew some people a few years ago who had 2 courtside season tickets. They were like 40 grand a piece, to own those tickets. So who's got the kind of money that's going to fund filling up a 20,000 seat arena when all these things are leaving and the economies of both Oregon and Washington are falling down? On the other hand, so Nashville would probably be better for Dundon that way. But like you said, he's got all the relocation costs plus the $1 billion fee, $800 million to $1 billion that the league is going to demand. I think the city could just call his bluff, because here's a city, Ari, that wants to commit $120 million to benefit a billionaire, and average response time to 911 lights and siren calls is 20 minutes plus. They don't have enough cops. And every government in the state is pleading poverty on actually meeting the needs of citizens. But all of a sudden, they have hundreds of millions of dollars to flush down a rat hole to benefit a billionaire. How do you justify that? This is the guy whose kids have no shoes who shows up with a new Porsche in the driveway.
Yeah, especially when the left loves to say how much they love billionaires, right? I mean, aren't they all about taxing and everybody paying their fair share? And also, I don't know if you saw this story out of Seattle, Lars, but you had teams like the Storm, which is one of the wokest teams in town, and you had the Capitol Hill Block Party and the Seattle Convention Center begging the mayor for more security cameras and to make sure that the security cameras are actually turned on, because the crime has gotten so bad that even these anti-police agencies are saying we want more cops, and yet Portland and Seattle doesn't have that to give. Lars Larson, you can catch a show every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
And you as well, Ari. Take care.
Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into your smoky evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode, another amazing week of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And just a reminder to everybody, after we are done today, there's a whole nother hour of the Ari Hoffman Show. The Ari Hoffman Show reloaded from 6 to 7 p.m., sponsored by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms. I went out there last weekend, had a great time. You should go out there as well. It was awesome. And it's all content from today. So if you missed parts of the show, you get to catch up on it during the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded. That's coming up from 6 to 7. So a lot of you are actually texting me about Senator Scoop Jackson, who I'm not very familiar with. I remember one little tidbit, and like I said, not entirely sure all the details of it because I didn't know a lot about him because, hey, I'm not from around here. But this one from Bob in the 509 sums it up well. Senator Jackson, for the most part, was considered a true hawk regarding the projection of American power and was often at odds with much of his own party. He was also in favor of the multiple-use sustained yield perspective concerning natural resource management, as envisioned by Theodore Roosevelt. Jackson chaired the Senate Natural Resources Committee for many years. He was always a staunch promoter of the Pacific Northwest, be it concerning hydropower, Boeing, responsible resource extraction, be it timber, mining, or fishing. The tree hugger faction of his own party had no love for him in the 1970s. He was also a staunch supporter of Israel, actively petitioned the Nixon administration to support F-4s and other cutting-edge military hardware to Israel in the early 1970s. As a fledgling senator, Jackson was at odds with Joe McCarthy and his antics, but through his career, Jackson was always rabidly opposed to all things communist. My grandfather knew the senator, and I met him a couple times as a child. I don't agree historically with all of his stances, but he was one of only a couple Democrats that I could support without reservation. Had the opportunity to vote for him barely in 1982, my first election, says Just Bob. Bob, you have inspired me. I'm going to go read up on him because he sounds like a Republican, and that's a Democratic senator. Oh, how far the party has strayed these days that now there's a bunch of commies running his school over at the University of Washington. We will go check that out. This one here, Marina was asking about the cameras. Hey, Ari, can all these private venues have their own cameras, just keep on a watch on it themselves? Okay, well, here's the thing. King County and Seattle have banned guns from places like that. So you can keep an eye on it all you want. You can watch them steal things. You can watch them shoot things. It didn't do a lot of good to stop all the shootings there during Bite of Seattle. Anyway, switching gears over to actual good news here. This one from our friends over at Fox News. A wounded care clinic nurse survived a freak hiking accident and impressively hiked 10 miles to safety after suffering a serious injury. David Kifaldi, who previously worked as an emergency room nurse, was impaled by a trekking pole while climbing Montana's Granite Peak on July 20th. Okay, I don't want to be a jerk about this, but it kind of sounds like one of those Leslie Nielsen kind of things, like you fall down, oh no, I got impaled by my own thing. Okay, we don't know what actually happened, but where'd he get it from? He was hiking with two friends when the accident occurred, according to his GoFundMe page. At about 11,800 feet, Chapati stepped on a small loose rock, dropped his trekking pole, and fell. Oh no, he fell forward. Okay, this sounds awful. Sorry for making any light of this at all. The pole went all the way through his lat, sticking out on both ends with roughly 8 inches between the two holes. Wow, that's awful. That Kevin's grimacing over there.
So where's your lat? Is that Is that under your arm?
Isn't that like here?
Yeah, I think
right over here, right under your armpit.
I always get it mixed up with whatever by your neck. You know, this part. Like
is
that traps? Maybe I don't know.
You know what I think?
I don't know.
Do you remember those Mike's Hard Lemonade commercials in the early 2000s where something awful would happen and they go, screw it, let's go have a Mike's Hard Lemonade? Yeah. One of them I remember, it's a construction site and a guy gets impaled by rebar. It's like, dude, you just got impaled by rebar. He's like, yeah, that sucks. Let's go get a Mike's Hard Lemonade. And he's sitting there at the bar being impaled with the rebar. That's what I'm picturing right here with this. Okay. Civaldi, who works at a local wound care clinic, self-assessed the situation calmly. Okay, I wouldn't be. No, I can deal with other people in the heat of the moment. Myself, I don't know. Well, whatever. No bleeding, full feeling, no lightheadedness, nothing vital hit. The pole stable in place, said the GoFundMe page. Given his condition, he made the call to self-rescue rather than wait for extraction, hiking 10 miles back to the trailhead with a trekking pole still through his body. Can you imagine the people in the lodge that see him coming back? Hey, what's going? Do you see that? Are you seeing Are you seeing that out there? That dude's got a pole through his lat.
Do you think people would be like, "Oh, it's just one of those optical illusions, like the arrow in the head. He just wants attention."
They probably thought it was a joke. And then the dude shows up and goes, "No, like I actually need help here. Like, can you help me out with this?" As they descended, he said he asked one of his friends to go ahead and warn approaching hikers that no children would unexpectedly encounter his injury. Wow. After reaching the trailhead, he was driven about 2 hours to an emergency room in Billings, the nearest hospital equipped to remove the pole. Wow.
How'd he sit in the car?
I have many questions. Sideways in the back seat?
Maybe.
Station wagon? SUV? You fold down the seats, you sit on? I don't know. All told, it was in place for 8 or 9 hours from fall to removal. Wow. David is now receiving ongoing care with the possibility of surgery still to come. Oh, you think? He's described the incident as a freak thing. I think my nurse brain just clicked on. As soon as I was able to self-assess and establish I was not life-threatening right now, I was pretty convinced I was going to get off that mountain under my own power. The healthcare professional added that he feels very lucky. A couple of inches the other way, it would have been a different story. Oh, you think? Wow. Just wow. So, Kevin, he's got these pictures where he's holding the area under his thing, kind of under your armpit, I think is where the lat is. All right. Anyway, switching gear over here to another nurse story, this one from our friends over at the Good News Network. It's in a story that shows it's never too late to learn. A man in the UK has graduated from nursing school at the age of 64. Just in time to retire. No. His education actually saw the Nigerian immigrant, who's a father of 5, studying alongside his son, who was attending the very same university. John Odesoy, we'll just call him John, graduated with a degree in nursing from the University of West England after completing a 2-year nurse associate program and a 2-year nurse apprenticeship program at the National Health Services Foundation Trust in Bristol. John grew up in a poor farming family in Nigeria, developed a keen interest in electronics, having been fascinated as a child with how his family's radio worked. He later lived in Greece, worked as an electronics technician and servicing electronic equipment, and then moved to the UK. The father of 5, who now lives in Bristol, has secured a nursing role at Southmead Hospital, where he has completed his apprenticeship. He said, "I didn't think I'd ever go to university, to be honest, but I have a passion for learning. Even when I was small, I was so curious. When I got the chance to go to university, I didn't take it for granted. I follow it with my heart." Good on you, man, because I wasted all my time in university. Though most of his degree was completed at the local Southmead Hospital, a strange production of fate saw him spend one day of every week studying on campus alongside his very own son, Daniel, who is studying for a degree in creative music technology. He remarked that working among a cohort of young students in turn made him feel young again. Whether seeing his own son at university had the same effect, however, he didn't say. Wasn't that the Rodney Dangerfield movie, Back to School? That's what I'm thinking right now. I assume it wasn't that kind of situation, right?
Probably not, no. No.
Or you tell off the professor that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about in business, finance, and all that. That's a great movie. Don't listen to people who say you're too old for university. If I can do it, others can do it too. People are more brilliant than they think, and they're stronger than they think. John isn't the first to graduate in his golden years. GNN, the Good News Network, has reported on the topic often enough to know the maxim is never too late to learn is true at 65 or 105. Actually, hey, I'll tell you what, guys, I still am 1.5 credits short of my college degree. I still am.
How did you not finally just get that?
Well, so I asked during COVID, and they wanted me on campus. I had nothing else to do. They wanted me on campus, and I go, in New York?
During
and also,
COVID, too?
Nobody else is on campus, and you want me on campus? They want me to have on-campus credits? Maybe I should finish them up at UW.
That would be great.
Inside look at how the university actually works.
Let's do it.
Okay. I think this could be a fun experiment. Oh, crap. Hoffman's on campus.
They'll probably put you over at like UW Bothell or something, because I think there's a couple of satellite campuses.
I don't have the time to go to UW Bothell. I need to go to the main campus. There's a kosher bagel store up there. That's where I want to go. That's where I'll head to. Speaking of heading places, I think that's going to about wrap it up for us this week. Fear not, my friends. We'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. Reloaded's up next. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.